lahat. This hearing is now called to order. Halos 4 na taon matapos ilunsad ang Public Utility Vehicle Modernization Program o PUVMP, bubuksan nating muli ang issue kaugnay ng nalalapit na palugit na ibinigay para sa consolidation ngayong katapusan ng Marso. Ilang ulit na tinalakay ito sa Senado at ang issue ito ngunit hindi matapos-tapos ang reklamo. This time around, this committee will get to the bottom of these important issues. Una, ilang ulit na ring ipinakiusap ng komiting ito sa Department of Transportation na unahin na muna ang pagsasaayos ng mga ruta ng ayon sa sarili nitong department order. Tanggapin ang roadworthiness bilang standard sa pagmodernisa at pag-aralan muli ang buong polisiya ng phase-out. We have seen many deadlines come and go, but the basic issues that we discussed in the past remains unresolved. Ano ba ang sitwasyon ngayon? Ano ba ang nagawang aksyon? Pangalawa, kaugnay sa nalalapit na March 30 deadline, maraming driver, operator na hindi pa rin naniniwala sa konsolidasyon. Since most of the drivers and operators are new to the practice of organizing a cooperative, will they be provided with the relevant training and skills-building workshops to ensure better outcomes for their newly formed organizations? Ano-ano ang mga maaaring itulong ng DOTR pagdating sa ganitong usapin? Pangatlo, kung kumapit nga sila sa patalim at napilitang mag-consolidate para lang makapag-operate, ano naman ang aasahang tulong mula sa gobyerno para makabili ng modern units? Ayon mismo sa Department of Transportation, maaaring umabot sa 2.4 million ang halaga ng isang modern jeepney. Even if the government increased the subsidy to 160,000 pesos per unit, the numbers simply do not add up. Hindi ito kayang bilhin ng ordinaryong tsuper. Ito marahil ang dahilan kung bakit naibibigay ngayon ang prangkisa sa mga nagsusulputang kooperatiba at korporasyon na hindi naman talaga nanggaling sa mga hanay ng mga tsuper. Pang-apat, kung hindi talaga kayang mag-consolidate, ngunit roadworthy naman, makakabiyahe pa rin ba sila? Ano ang mangyayari sa kanila? May tulong ba silang matatanggap sa gobyerno? Kung meron man, sasapat ba ito upang makapagsimula silang muli ng bagong trabaho o kabuhayan? Nawalan ng kabuhayan ang karamihan ng mga PUV driver operators dahil sa pandemya. Ito mismo ang dahilan kung bakit sinisikap natin dito sa Senado na mabigyan sila ng agarang ayuda noong nakaraang taon sa ilalim ng Bayanihan 1 at pondo para sa subsidiya para makabiyahe ng ayon sa safety protocols sa ilalim ng Bayanihan 2 at 2021 budgets. In order to truly heal and recover as one, we need to lift unnecessary burdens caused by deadlines and requirements that could not possibly be met by hundreds of thousands of PUV operators. Data shows that there will be around 100,000 PUV drivers and operators who will be displaced as a result of the PUVMP. 100,000 pamilya ang magugutom sa ilalim ng programa sa gitna ng pandemya. Sino ang sasalon nito? Kaya ba sila kupkupin ng mga kooperatiba at korporasyon na makakakuha ng mga rutang naging lifeline ng mga driver sa loob ng mahabang panahon? This hearing is also a gentle reminder that any form of phase-out of any PUV is prohibited under the Bayanihan to Recover as One Act. Bawal po ang pagpapatigil ng biyahe ng mga PUV sa ilalim ng kahit anong programa, kahit ano pa po ang tawag, PUVM man o konsolidasyon. Lagi kong sinasabi ito tuwing may driver ang pinag-uusapan. Gusto nating maging ligtas ang ating mga daan at pampublikong sasakyan, ngunit ika nga nila, there are two sides to every story, and as policymakers, we are expected to consolidate both. While we push for safer roads, we should also put ourselves in the shoes of those who are asked to comply with the regulations we are implementing. Kaya ba ng mga karaniwang tsuper na sumusunod sa mga alituntunin ng programa? Kung noon pa lang ay umaangal na sila, ngayon pa kayang kasagsagan ng pandemya? Surely, there must be a way to modernize our public utility vehicles without throwing our drivers under the proverbial bus. It is under these circumstances that this hearing is called for. We want to hear all sides so that we can finally put to rest this issue and give some peace of mind to the PUV sector. 4 na taon na silang tinatakot na tatanggalan sila ng kabuhayan. Sabi nga ng mga tsuper na humingi ng tulong sa komite, hindi sila sa COVID namamatay, kung hindi sa stress, dulot ng ganitong mga paiba-ibang polisiya. On this note, I would like to offer a minute of silence to honor the leaders who relentlessly fought for the rights of the transport sector. Alalahanin po natin si Ka Zeni Maranan na marami beses nating nakasama at si Ka Efren De Luna. 1 minute of silence, please. Maraming salamat, Ka Zeni at Ka Efren, sa inyong walang sawang serbisyo. Maraming salamat po. I would like to acknowledge the presence of Senators Nancy Binay and Senator Joel Villanueva, or at least they've indicated that they will be joining our hearing this morning. And for our secretariat, please read the names of our resource persons and their designation. Go ahead, please, Secretariat.
Good morning, Madam Chair. For the public hearing of the Committee on Public Services on the Just and Humane Public Utility Vehicles Modernization Act, we have the following resource persons online: Yusek Rainier Paul Ariebra, Undersecretary for Legal Affairs, Department of Transportation. We have Attorney Mark Stephen Pastor, Assistant Secretary for Road Transport and Infrastructure, Department of Transportation, together with Ms. Erica Magpayo, Jarisa May Biscante, Jomier Pantawe, Joyce Rivera, and Bian Valiente, and Ms. Joyce Rivera. And then we have Mr. Eugene Pabuwalan, Executive Director of Transportation Cooperatives, DOTR. Attorney Martin Delgra, Chairman, Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, together with Mr. Joel Bolano, Mr. Zeb Usain, and Yanni Bermudez. Then Mr. Edgar Galvante, Assistant Secretary, Land Transportation Office. We have the Governor, Daniel R. Fernando of the Province of Bulacan. Mr. Melencio Boy Vargas, National President, Alliance Transport Operators and Drivers Association of the Philippines. Mr. Modesto Floranda of Piston. Mr. Danilo Yumol, Confederation of Drivers and Operators in Central Luzon. Mr. Robert Martin, Pasang Mazda. Mr. Salty Ping-ay, Vice President, Stop and Go Coalition. Mr. Ernesto Cruz, President, National Confederation of Transport Workers Union. Mr. Ricardo Rebano, National President, FEDIODAP. Mr. Teddy Herbacio, President, Inland Haulers and Truckers Association. Mr. Alex Yage, Executive Director, Philippine Bus Operators Association of the Philippines. Ms. Juliet De Jesus, Nagkakaisang Lakas ng Manggagawa, and Samahang Transport Operators ng Pilipinas with Mr. Jerry Danila. We have Mr. Rosalino Villarrazat, Federation of Ayala Center Transport Terminal Incorporated. Rachel Yacent Bendanya, Secretary General Move as One Coalition. And TOEX Serna Move One Coalition. That's all for the meantime, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Yusa Kuda. I think I would like to remind our resource persons we'd like to get as much done in the shortest possible time. As you know, even the Senate now is pretty stretched. We're not even supposed to have this hearing today. And we thank our ComSec for making himself available, even online. So as much as possible, let's finish this hearing by noon, hopefully, kung kakayanin. May I begin with the LTFRB? Ano na ba yung status ng ating yung status ngayon ng PUVMP? LTFRB?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you also for inviting us, not only LTFRB, but the OTR, so that we'll be able to give the latest update on the program implementation under the PUV modernization program. And perhaps to take note on the advice and guidance of Madam Chair, may we be allowed to share screen so that we'll be able to expedite the presentation of the updates that you have requested, Madam Chair, please.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to have a short presentation on the updates po. Can you see the screen?
We can see it, Chair Delga.
Okay. I'm sorry. Okay, sorry. Before I start with the updates, it might be good to put the context, the program implementation as to the updates in context on what the key components are. And perhaps it might be good again to, the context would start from even before we started this program, Madam Chair. Yung paglalakbay po natin dito sa tungo sa tunay na pagbabago, pag-modernize na natin sa ating public transport would start with a single step. Attempts have been made in the past, as mentioned in the covering statement for this proposed bill, and we recognize those attempts, Madam Chair. We also would like to say, however, that under this administration, this is the most serious attempt that we have made, because we have gone as far as we can insofar as the program implementation is concerned. And we would like to show this to you insofar as the numbers are concerned. But to put that in context, the PUV modernization program is actually composed of several key components. But I would just like to talk about, very briefly, 5 or 6 components, brushing through each one of them. The first one is the local public transport route plan. Alam niyo po, yung pagpaplano ng rota dati, nanggagaling lang doon sa maliit na opisina ng DOTC. But we know that transport planning is a local concern. In fact, it is a government, it's public transport is a public need, and for which government has to take a public and significant role in addressing this. And that's the reason why a key component here is the participation of our local government unit to plan their own local public transport needs. So ito po yung local public transport route plan. Pangalawa, yung route rationalization. Aside from planning locally the routes in each and every locality, meron din tayong route rationalization sa mas malakihang konteksto, kagaya ng nangyayari ngayon sa Metro Manila, kasi malaki talaga. We are talking about 17 jurisdictions, of which the routes would cut across or cut through several jurisdictions at any time. And that's the reason why yung pagpaplano po nito, malakihan. Ongoing po yung pagpaplano nito at kinukuha na po natin yung report as they have committed to submit the report on or before the end of the month. Meron din po tayong malaking pagpaplano din sa mga rota doon sa tinatawag nating inter-provincial, inter-regional routes in Visayas and in Mindanao. Tuloy-tuloy doon po itong pagpaplano na ito, and that we are expecting the report to be submitted on or before the end of this first half of the year. Pangatlo, and I think this is one sensitive area that we can discuss later, yung fleet modernization. Alam po natin na this component aims to provide national standard, kung ano yung ligtas at komportable para sa ating mananakay at para sa ating tsuper. We would just like to point out here that the whole objective of this program is about having to give the commuters, millions of them, safe, comfortable, and dependable public transport, one of which is to modernize our fleet. Industry consolidation is also one key component, merging operators into cooperative or other legal entity so that they can run modernized unit in a systematic and predictable manner. Panglima po, and which I think this should also be significant to discuss later, yung social support mechanism sa programa ilalim nitong PUVMP. Ang sinasabi po rito aims to assist drivers, operators who will be displaced or will opt out of the program through training or livelihood program. But I also would like to emphasize here, Madam Chair, that the social support mechanism also gives those who would want to retain their livelihood under the industry. Ibig sabihin po, mabibigyan din sila ng ayuda by way of additional competence in running a co-op perhaps, or in terms of additional or raising the competency of their driving skills. So ito po yung mga components nitong social support. So where are we now insofar as the PUVMP is concerned? Let's look at the fleet modernization. Ilan na po yung mga units na modernize? We just want to pick, there are actually close to 9 or 10 modes of public transport, but we would just like to focus on these 4 modes, PUJ, UV, minibus, and buses, mainly because they run on routes. So that malagay natin sa konteksto yung component on the route rationalization at saka yung LPTRP na pinaplano sa tulong na rin ng ating mga LGUs po. So, as of December 19, yung units po, because this program started 2017 when the department order was issued, 1,421 units. However, if I may have to confess, Madam Chair, that notwithstanding the pandemic, to our surprise po, tuloy-tuloy yung malakas na suporta sa programa. Dahil by December 2020, meron na pong mga 2,589 or an incremental increase of 1,168 units even during the time of the pandemic, or an increase of 82%. From December po until March 5, ito na po yung latest, from 2,589, naging close to 3,000 na po, or an increase of 340 units as of March 5. Again, an increase of 13%. Anecdotal, if I may, Madam Chair, last week po, we had several PUV launchings in Caraga, Agusan del Sur, Cagayan de Oro City in Region 10, Cebu City, Mandaue in Region 7, and here in Quezon City. So ang ibig kong sabihin, tuloy-tuloy po yung suporta dito sa programang ito. Alam po natin na mahirap ang pinagdaanan natin sa pandemya, and in fact, to our surprise, akala namin either babagal pa o kaya titigil. But we are very supportive to those who are very supportive of the program. if I may say at this point in time. Where are we insofar as franchise consolidation? We just want to have a baseline data of 218,625 units, yung tinatawag nating DLTS, Distribution of Land Transport Services, patungkol dito sa 4 na modes of public transport as of December 2020. As of March 5 po, 2021, we already have consolidated in terms of units po, 81,092 or an accomplishment rate of 35.92%. We just want to highlight the distinction between those DLTS po to the column under new and developmental routes. Kasi yung DLTS po, ito yung mga existing units running on existing routes. The new routes were actually open during the time of the program implementation. So as you can see on the third to the last column, mataas po yung accomplishment rate dito sa franchise consolidation to about 64%. For existing franchise naman po, yung tinatawag nating DLTS, yung baseline po natin dito is 218,625 and they run on a total of 11,031 routes. As of December 20 po, there were already consolidated franchise running on 1,049. However, there is a significant increase by March 5, 2021 to 2,085 or an incremental increase of close to 100% in the last less than 3 months po. On the number of consolidated transport services entities, I think this is also something that we can discuss further because I know that this is also a component of the program that is talked about, as mentioned earlier in the opening statement of Madam Chair. So as you can see po, we already have a total of close to 800 cooperatives running along 1,564 routes all over the country. And for the corporations that have participated in the program, 304 covering 543. Yun po yung mga numbers of consolidated entities as of March 5, 2021. Why is there need for consolidation? And if I may emphasize, Madam Chair, this is really the first component that we need to do before we get into the other components like even the financial component of borrowing from the bank, getting new units. It's really the key here is consolidation. Why is that? Para access to credit facility. No? Mapagbigyan tayo sa bangko. Kung isang tsuper pupunta sa bangko, maghihiram ng pera para kukuha ng isang unit, ay hindi po tayo pakinggan ng bangko. Ang gusto po na makita ng bangko is may isang grupo, kagaya ng isang cooperative, na uutang para tatakbo doon sa isang rota. Ang ibig po sabihin nito, na yung financial viability po ng rota na yan, ang kinikilala ng bangko para tatakbo in a systematic and consolidated manner. Isang benepisyo po sa consolidation, mas spread out po yung operating daily expenses natin sa pagpapatakbo ng public transport. At makita rin natin kasi organisado na po sila, mas eficiente ang dispatching system. Ibig sabihin, the efficient use of our unit is assured because we run on a consolidated franchise. Improve yung collection kasi po and later lesser risk. There is access to common garage and depot. So ibig sabihin po hindi na po masyadong problema doon sa mga individual operators because they will now form into co-ops. Meron ding dividendo at membership benefit dahil cooperative po sila. And most importantly, lalong-lalo na sa mga tsuper, fixed salary na po sila at may benefit. Aside from that, because they are on fixed salary, we will be doing away from the so-called oppressive boundary system. Kasi yan talaga yung dagok ditong existing fragmented transport industry natin, Madam Chair. And we need to fix that in a very significant, fundamental way. I mentioned about local public transport route plan, and I think we need to emphasize the fact na malaki po yung papel ng ating mga local government units sa pagpaplano ng kanilang mga rota. As we all know, local public transport needs are local needs in their locality. But the parameters by which they are to plan are basically national government guided. Kaya nga meron tayong DOTR na naglalaan ng tinatawag na national standard and guidelines on how to plan routes in their respective jurisdiction. So a breakdown of this, Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, we have a total of 1,575 LGUs all across the country. Ang na-train na po ng LTFRB at DOTR, kasama na po yung consultant na tumutulong sa pagtitrain ng mga LGUs po all across the country, is a total of 1,379. And the total submission out of those trained is 613. Another breakdown po dito is just to appreciate yung mga types of LGUs who have attended and were given capacity building workshops so that they'll be able to train themselves and plan their own local public transport route plan. So ito po, municipalities, cities, LGUs, at saka, highly urbanized and independent component cities and provinces. So as you can see, 87.44% out of the 1,575 LGUs have already been trained, and of which 611 LGUs have submitted their LPTRP. Yung submission ng LPTRP would be subject to revisions, amendments, consultation para mapagtibay pa yung mga plano na isubmit po nila sa DOTR at saka sa LTFRB. So that tulong na rin sa kanila, pagdating ng panahon, maiplano nila ng husto kung papaano na paplanuhin yung tinatawag na interconnectivity of routes, pagkikilala kung saan dadaan yung mga mananakay sa kanilang mga lugar, no? Because they have all the data there. For example, local population, the LGU would know. Comprehensive land use plan, they would also know. So all those data are available locally, and that will come in good use when they plan. We mentioned about those affected. Madam Chair, there is a social support component nitong PUVMP. Kaakibat po natin dito yung TESDA, so that sila po yung magbibigay ng mga training, pero ang yung galing po ang budget galing po sa DOTR. And based on our consultation with TESDA, meron pong 20,909 approved slots, meron na pong nag-enroll na 17,000, at meron na pong nag-graduate na 10,147. This is the program that is ongoing on a budget that started last year. Ibig sabihin po yung budget nito was last year. And if you would see at the footnote, meron pong additional budget at sa tulong na rin ng Kongreso, ng Senado at ng House of Representatives na tuloy-tuloy yung pagtutulong natin sa mga tsuper at mga operator na maapektuhan ng whether positively or adversely dito sa programang ito. Part of this social support, actually, when they enroll, they are given what we call daily allowance, katumbas doon sa mawawala sa kanila pag babiyahe po sila. So ibig sabihin, binabayaran yung tinatawag nating lost time doon sa mag-participate sa programang ito. Ito po yung mga very quickly lang, Madam Chair, related POV issuances. Meron po tayong na-issue na yung LTFRB po, yung Memorandum Circular on Simplified Process of Application. Meron din po tayong na-issue na MC 2020-084, extension of time to file application for consolidation. Itong MC 2020-044, which is actually an incentive to those who would consolidate. Kasi yung prangkisa po natin is actually good for 5 years, but when they do come into the program, their franchise is extended up to 7 years. No? This is also in line with the financial package given by the government financial institutions kung saan binigyan din sila mas mahabang panahon na makakabayad. Instead of the usual 3 to 5 years, binigyan po ng DBP at Land Bank na hanggang 7 taon para makakabayad sa utang. So malawag po yung programa pagdating sa financial. Meron din po dito yung implementing guidelines patungkol sa consolidation po. What are we saying here, Madam Chair, if I may? At the end of the day, we all know that there are problems. We all know that the program is comprehensive enough to say that there would be people who will be affected, more so now during the time of the pandemic. But we would just like to say also, as in consultation with our stakeholders, lalong-lalo na sa mga tsuper at mga driver, na sana itutuloy natin itong programang ito. We might walk slowly, we might walk a little bit faster, depending on how problems might come our way. But we are confident, Madam Chair, if I may, that given the bill that you have presented before the body, that indeed you are one with us to continue with the modernization program. And that is what we want to say, that we are in support of the bill because essentially it is to continue with the program. It might talk about 1 or 2 components of the program, but at least it's an affirmation that the things that we have done in the last 2, 3, 4 years will not come to naught, but will continue so that we'll be able someday to modernize all the public utility vehicle that we desire will be modernized and transform ourselves. No? Sa tulong nating lahat po, hindi po kaya ng LTFRB yan, hindi po kaya ng DOTR. Sa tulong natin na lahat na nandito ngayon, lalong-lalo na sa ating mga tsuper, operator, cooperatives, no? Sa bangko, lahat po tayo dito. Hindi po ito whole of government approach, whole of nation approach po tayo dito, Madam Chair. Yun lang muna. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comprehensive presentation, Chairman Delgra. My takeaway from the whole presentation is that there's a marked improvement of those that are willing to join. On the other hand, there's still a lot of other drivers that we need to absorb and encourage to join if ever. But we would like to hear also from their side. Mabuti rin, meron pala kayong TESDA program na ipinaalala ninyo na nagbibigay pa rin sa kanila ng allowances habang sila ay nagpa-participate sa continuing education. Ngayon, for reasons of fairness and balance, I'd also like to hear from Mr. Yumul. Ano naman po ang... well, before we go to Mr. Yumul, I see the hand of Alex Yage. Sir, ano pong gusto ninyong idagdag in connection with the presentation?
Magandang umaga lang, Chair. Magandang umaga sa lahat ng mga nasa hearing ngayon. Maganda po yung paliwanag ni Chairman Delgra at at least ngayon ko lang po naintindihan kung ano yung paliwanag ni Chairman, kung ano yung programa ng PBUMP. Sapagkat po, 4 na taon po na since naumpisahan po yung programa, hindi po tayo public consultation at public hearing dun sa mga apektadong operator at apektadong mga stakeholders. Ang nakikita po namin, Madam Chair, ay kung nagkaroon po sana ng malawakang consultation at public hearing dito sa mga issues ng PBUMP, ay sana po ay nakaisip tayo ng magandang consensus na para hindi po mahirapan yung ating mga driver, hindi mahirapan din yung mga operator. Kasi sa ngayon po, dahil sa pandemic, ang mga operator, mga provincial bus operator po, 1 year na po, ang majority po hindi nakakatakbo. Nagkaroon na po kami ng loan moratorium sa aming mga financing and banking institutions. At kung ipagpapatuloy po natin yung sa ngayon po, na hindi wala ho kaming kinikita, paano ho kami makakapasok, makakalapit sa ating mga bangko na bigyan po kami ng panibagong utang para makabili ng bus. Hindi nga ho namin mabayaran yung mga empleyado namin. Paano pa kaya kung bumili pa ng bagong bus? Kaya po ang position po namin, Madam Chair, ay isuspindi po natin muna ang PBUMP na maganda yung nabanggit ni Chairman Delgra. Lahat po dapat ng mga points na binanggit ni Chairman Delgra, kailangan po ipaliwanag po niya sa lahat ng stakeholders, lahat po sa ating mga kagalang-galang mga senador at mga kagalang-galang na mga congressmen para makahanap po tayo ng consensus para lahat po tayo ay tama po si Chairman. Makausad po tayo kahit na po mayroong pandemya ngayon. Salamat po.
Thank you po, Mr. Yage. Gusto ko naman marinig si Mr. Yumul sa kanyang feedback.
Magandang umaga po, Madam Chair, and sa lahat po ng mga mambabatas natin ngayon, TOTR, LTFRB. Lahat po ng nandito ngayon, alam ko po, kaya na-invite nyo yung mga yan as a resource person. Makakatulong po sa usapin. Ano po? Gusto ko lang pong balikan itong presentation ni Chairman Delgra. Ano po? Kung titignan natin sa datos, napakagandang pakinggan. Lalo na po yung sinasabi niyang 5 component ng PUBNP na kung saan yung kauna-unaan, yung local public transport route plan. Isa pong ebidensya na kasama po sa resource person ngayon ng ama ng lalawigan ng Bulacan, kung saan nasalanta sila ng gusto ang San Jose del Monte. Nagugulat na lang yung LGU kung bakit dinuplicate po ang rota ng mga traditional jeep. Ibig sabihin po, wala pong ginawang pag-aaral ang LGU, yung pong tinatawag nilang local public transport route plan. Ang nangyari po kaya hindi nakakabiyahe yung mga traditional jeep. Bagong rota, bagong operator, modernized jeep ang ginagamit. So, doon lang po, yung tinutungtungan nyo pong batas na sinasabi nyo, nilalabag nyo na po yung Department Order 2017-011. Ano po? At lahat po ng tumangkilik ng programa na yan, puntahan po natin isa-isa, Madam Chair, o kunan natin ng consensus. Bawat isa po umiiyak ngayon. Mayroon nga pong grupo sa Pampanga, iiwanan na po yung 15 unit sa LTFRB region dahil hindi na po nila kayang hulugan. Ano po? At yung sinasabi niyong programa sa TESDA ay napakagandang pakinggan po. Puro po yata kayo graduate, pasensya na po sa word. Ano po? Puro drawing po yung nakita namin kasi kahit isa sa amin, even yung programa ng contract service sa individual operator, wala po kami na bail. Ano po? Ngayon, napakaganda po nung sinasabi ninyo na yung mga datos na yan nag-comply na. Napakadali pong mag-consolidate, Madam Chair. Kahit ako, yung mga miyembro ko nationwide, bukas na bukas o ngayon din, pwede ko sabihin mag-consolidate kami. Pero yung pag-avail po ng mga modernized jeep, alam nyo po kung magkano. Yung class 1, may 1 milyon. Yung class 2, may 2 milyon. Yung class 3, may 3 milyon. More or less po, kailangan namin magulog ng 40,000 naman. Ang pasada po namin sa mga traditional, almost break even lang. Makapag-uwi ka ng 300, 400, salamat. lalo na po kung may hulugan ka, kailangan mong mag-ipon o magtabi ng 1,500 a day para doon sa hulugan mo. At sinasabi niya rin po kanina, hindi ka naman ikapauutangin kung mag-isa ka lang pupunta ka sa bangko, dapat grupo ka. Huwag nyo naman po kami masyadong maliitin kasi meron po kaming operator na isang operator, 40 o 50 units ang sasakyan niya. Kaya niyang bumili. Ito, misa ko nang sinabi sa director niya sa Region 3 ito. What if ako may kakayahang bumili? Bakit kailangan mo magpa-interest ng 7 taon na milyon-milyon? Magse-seminar po kami sa co-op. May pondo po yung CDA, may pondo po yung OTC. Sa seminar pa lang, sinisingil kami. Sa pagkukonsolidate pa lang, kailangan mong gumastos ng from 11,000 to 20,000 dahil sa slashing o change of ownership. Bakit kailangan pong yung investment namin katulad ko po bilang OFW? Kaya po ako nagkaroon ng jeep. 7 po yung sasakyan ko. Kaya po ako nagkaroon ng jeep dahil sa pag-OFW ko. Investment ko po yun. Hindi po magkaroon ako ng prangkisa nung wala akong pag-aaring sasakyan. Ngayon, tatakutin nyo kami. Ito po, Madam Chair, magmula po nung panganak ang Department Order 2017 noong June 19, sabi ni Chairman Degra, base sa programa nila, sa loob ng 3 taon, fully implemented na yan. Hanggang June 30 na lang kayo. Pagdating po ng July 1, in-extend po nila July 1 to December 31. Pagdating ng December 31, in-extend na naman nila hanggang March 31. Wala na po silang ginawa sa amin. Mas kinatatakutan pa po ang LTFRB sa ngayon kaysa sa pandemya. Bakit po? Punta ka sa LTFRB, makikita mo yung mga signboard noon. Pag hindi kayo nag-consolidate, mawawala na kayo. Yung mga employee nila, sino po ang tinatanggap? Tignan po natin lahat ng mga nakapag-avail ng modernization program kung old operator. Kaya napakaganda po nung Senate Resolution 867, yung just and humane. First presence, first usage. Nakita po yung laman. Pero sa kanila, lahat po lang inaproban nila, Madam Chair, hindi po existing operator yan. Puro mang kapitalistang bago, katulad po ni Brian po yun, na solution. O katulad po nung iba-ibang mga korporasyon, nakita natin doon sa mga datos na. Ibig ko pong sabihin, nasaan po yung programa para sa aming maliit na nag-develop ng rota na kung tutusin, since after World War II, kami na po ang nag-develop niyan. Inako po ba ng gobyerno?
Mr. Yumol, may tanong po ako sa inyo. Kayo meron kayong sarili ninyong samahan, di ba? May grupo ka. Okay, nakakuha ka na ba ng prangkisa sa kanila dito sa bagong programa nila? Nabigyan kayo?
Actually po, ine-extend lang po kami. From 5 years na validity na CPC, kayo po ginawang may 3 months, may 1 year, may 1 month. Yung po yung tinatawag nilang provisional authority.
So ano daw ang kulang sa inyo? Bakit hindi kayo mabigyan ng mas mahabang prangkisa?
Dahil po hindi raw kami compliance doon sa consolidation. Pinaliwanag ko na po. Kaya hindi po kami pumapayag sa consolidation kasi po mawawala yung pinaghirapan namin. Yung maliit na operator na nakapangalan sa kanya, yung pangalan kong Danilo Yumul, mawawala na po sa amin yung pangalan ng prangkisa. Mapupunta na po doon sa korporasyon o kooperatibang ikatatag ninyo. Kaya po ayaw namin mag-consolidate dahil ang tanong ko po, bakit kailangan inabutan na lang kami kung gusto nilang maging modernize ang mga sasakyan for the sake of commuting public para doon sa safety at convenience? Bakit kailangan tanggalan mo kami ng prangkisa? Dahil alam mo, sooner or later, katulad ng nangyayari ngayon, marami nang nabata o na kinuha ng mga financier na hindi nahulugan. Alam mo, mapapangalan sa kapitalista yon, Madam Chair.
Hindi ka ba pwedeng gumawa ng sarili mong kumpanya at isama mo yung grupo na yon? Chairman Delgrap, if for example, Mr. Yumol approaches you and he himself would like to consolidate and have his own company with all his members, pwede po ba yon?
Absolutely, Madam Chair. Because that is really the essence of modernization. Thank you for clarifying that for us. Pwede po yan. That is really the essence of modernization po.
Pero ganito, tatanggapin nyo ba sila? Halimbawa, dun sa hanay ni Mr. Yumol, hindi naman lahat modernized na yung jeep. Kasi nga, di ba sinasabi niya, 40,000 per month, maaring ang amortization. Di ba sabi ninyo, Chair, na ang bangko, mas madaling magpapautang kung meron kang kooperatiba. Di ba? So, ibig sabihin, pag nag-apply sila para makakuha ng prangkisa sa inyo to form their own company or cooperative, there may be some members that have yet to obtain a loan. So meaning, hindi pa sila lahat modernized, but roadworthy. Papayag ba kayo doon?
Madam Chair, I just like to put that in its proper context. Unang-una, yung sinabi po natin kanina, key to the modernization, yung pagko-consolidate, kasi watak-watak po yung prangkisa rito. We're talking about, on our database, 1.3 units per franchise. That is not an efficient, dependable way of running public transport services. Just to drive home the point on why we need consolidation.
No, I understand. Yes.
Moving forward po, yung sinasabi niyo pong unit, wala po tayong sinasabi na kung mag-consolidate kayo, may mga bagong units kayo. Mag-consolidate lang po muna kayo. Yun lang po. Si Ka-Obet is actually nodding his head because he understands fully the modernization program. Ibig sabihin po, pag mag-consolidate na po, Madam Chair, doon pa lang po tayo gagawa pa ng mga susunod na hakbang. For example, ilang units ang kailangan natin doon sa rota na in-applyan natin. Ibig sabihin, kung sabihin natin 15, then we go to the bank and the bank will analyze it not on a per unit cost, but rather having to determine the financial viability of that route. Kasi sa kabuuan natin titingnan kung kikita ba sila o hindi. Tama naman yung sinabi ni Yumol, ayaw niya ng modernization, gusto niya manatili yung mga individual franchises. Pero meron silang samahan. Ang ibig ko sabihin po, nakikita po natin yung katatagan at yung significance ng pagsasama, yung essence ng consolidation. And that's the way the bank would look at it as well. Insofar as regulation is concerned, insofar as having to route is concerned, ganun din ang pagtingin natin dito. We're not going back to the 1.3 unit per franchise that runs on a route with, say for example, 100 unit on a route. Talagang watak-watak yan, Madam Chair.
Okay, Chair.
Apo.
So ibig sabihin, kasi nabanggit ni Mr. Yumol, mga kapitalista. So kung ayaw niya naman sumanib doon, pwede naman gumawa ng sarili nila, di ba?
Yes po, absolutely.
Okay.
So long
Maybe,
as consolidated po sila. Yun naman din
pero,
po talaga ang gusto natin.
Pero siguro, ang concern ni Mr. Yumol, nauna na sila sa mga ibang ruta. Ngayon, may pumasok na mga kumpanya. Baka naman yung ruta na kanilang tinakbuhan ng ilang taon, yun ang mawala sa kanila. Tama ba yon, Mr. Yumol?
Opo, ang hindi lang baka, Madam Chair, check nyo yung record ni Mr. Degla sa Region 3. Meron kayong inaprubahan na rota, ang Dauma, Balacat, UB Express. Compliant sila sa PUBMP, nag-consolidate sila, ginawa nila lahat ng gusto nyo. Pero nag-entertain po kayo ng mga ka-competition nila, duplicating the route. Nag-hearing po kami noong March 23. Yan po ba yung sinasabi nyo may sure benefits at saka incentive? Kayo mismo, binibigyan nyo kami ng problema. Sabi nga ng isang kongresista, dapat situate na para makabayad kami ng utang. Yan sa kukunin namin bagong jeep, solo namin yung rota. Wala ka kompetensya kung may bus, walang jeep, kung may jeep, walang tricycle. Pero kayo mismo, tumatanggap kayo ng mga new applicant dahil yung mga tao nyo, alam nyo, nakikita sila. Mayroong corruption po na yan. Saan makakakita ng tumanggap sila ng bagong rota? May tumatakbong rotang compliance naman sa PUBNP. Bakit?
Opo.
Dahil naglalagay sila sa LTFRB.
Mr. Yumol, actually, yung aming consultant, sinabi, tama ka, na yung LTFRB, nagbibigay ng mga prangkisa doon sa mga bagong mga corporate types. Naintindihan ko, Chairman Delgra, kasi mas organized itong mga kumpanya na to, no? Sa mga legalese at saka sa mga business requirements and practices. Pero may effort ba ang LTFRB na ginawa na Mr. Yumol, malaki ang samahan ninyo. Sumama muna kayo. Kayo munang bibigyan namin ng prioridad kasi ruta na ninyo yan dati pa. But organize yourselves. Meron ba kayong ginawang ganon?
Ay ang ganda po nun, Madam Chair. Kami mismo, pinipresenta na namin yung grupo namin. Pero bali wala po nagtetengang kawali po yung LTFRB, nagbubulag-bulagan. Bakit? Kami po mga traditional o dating operator, hindi na kami pinapansin. Ang pinapansin nila kung saan sila kikita yung mga bagong operator. Bakit po? Sa contract services lang, walang pinatatawag sa amin. Sa SAP, wala silang pinatatawag sa amin. Ang inuuna kaagad, itong mga nag-comply ng modernization. Nawawala na po kami sa eksena. Parang hindi
Mr. Yumol, gusto ko naman marinig si Mr. Martin ng Pasang Mazda. Tapos
Madam Chairperson.
Senator Nancy, go ahead. You have a question?
Yes, Madam Chairperson. Gusto ko lang sana itanong sa LTFRB. In fact, I've been asking for this date, yung plano, bago ba natin sinimulan itong modernization, may plano ba tayong ginawa or may mapping ba na ginawa yung LTFRB kung saan nakalagay doon yung what is existing and then what is, ano ba yung future plans dun sa mga ruta na yon? Meron po bang ganun?
Madam Chair, if I
Kasi parang, Madam Chairperson, doon lalabas yung, yung pag-iimbentarya natin kung sino na yung mga existing na operators na umiikot doon sa ruta na yon at kung may kakulangan ba or may opening ba for another group to enter that route. Meron ba tayong ganung mapping?
Thank you, Senator Nancy, for bringing that up. I'd like to acknowledge the presence also of Senator Joel Villanueva for taking time out this morning. I know he was also having to help his daughter with his homework. Thank you. Talagang mahal ni Senator Joel ang ating mga drivers kasi naawa rin siya being the chair of the Committee on Labor tsaka si Senator Nancy rin. Pero bago sagutin yan, Chair Nancy, yun nga yung matagal na namin hinihingi din yung route rationalization dun sa LTFRB. Medyo matagal na rin hindi namin nakuha. So maybe Chair Delgra, please address the question of Senator Nancy, and then later on I want to hear also from the other organizations and their experience. Go ahead, Chair Delgra.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for the question, Senator Nancy Binay. And nagpapasalamat ako kasi magandang katanungan po yan. Unang-una, pag mayroon po tayong programa, especially of this magnitude, at tumatakbo na. We mentioned about the jeep that has been running since after World War II. Ang ibig sabihin po natin dito, meron po tayong datos. It's not like planning in a vacuum na zero. We start from zero. No, we don't start from zero. We start from something that is there already. Actually, during our presentation, we presented the data that more or less we have something like yung tinatawag nating distribution of different modes po. Umaabot ng, we only identified 4 modes kanina. PUJ, UV, minibus, at saka mga buses because these are modes of public transport that run on route. So mayroon po tayong datos, inventory, na 218,000 units all across the country. Now, having said that, doon tayo magsisimula sa pagpaplano. Aside from the units po, titingnan din natin yung mga number of routes kung saan tumatakbo itong mga units na ito. So we have identified a little over 11,000, or to be exact, 11,031 routes as of now. Why do I say that? Kasi po, naisabi po natin kanina na when we started the program, hindi po na andun na lahat yung components at kompleto na. Hindi po ganun ang pagpapatakbo ng programang ito. Kasama po rito, I mentioned about the big role that the LGU has played and continue to play. Yung pagpaplano nila sa kanilang mga local routes po. Now, I mentioned about the numbers that out of the 1,575 LGUs, 1,379 have already been capacitated. 1 month capacity building workshop po ang binigay natin sa bawat LGU. At out of this 1,379, 611 na po ang nagsubmit ng LPTRP. Ang ibig ko sabihin, yung local public transport route plan nila, magsasabi sila na ito po yung kakailanganin namin na rota at units doon sa mga rota that were identified and planned locally. Aside from that po, may nasabi po kami na yung tinatawag nating route rationalization ng pangmalakihan. Ito po yung sa Metro Manila because we know that when we talk about transport planning or routes for that matter, para lang maintindihan natin in layman's term, they cut across jurisdiction from Rizal to San Juan to Manila. Ibig sabihin, no one LGU can plan their own route, especially here in Metro Manila. Having said that, meron pong kasalukuyang study, yung route rationalization study na ginagawa pa hanggang ngayon. At we expect that the report will be given to us by the end of the month. But in the meantime, as mentioned, hindi naman din pwede nating ititigil lahat. Otherwise, hindi lang yung mga super at mga operator ang kakalaban sa atin, hindi, pati yung mga mananakay. What am I saying? So yung mga existing routes na gustong mag-consolidate po, they can proceed with consolidation and still run the routes that they have been running even before. So yun po ang naipaplano natin patungkol sa inventory of units, inventory of routes, and how we address this in the short, medium, and long term po. I hope I answered your question, Senator Nancy.
Madam Chairperson, medyo naguluhan ako kasi parang may plano na hindi kompleto yung plano. Parang ganun yung dating I don't know if ako lang yung may ganong pagkaintindi. Siguro Madam Chairperson, can we just request LTFRB to submit whatever plan that they have? Or pwede bang mag-request? Baka pwedeng mag-submit sila sa committee ng isang mapa kung saan naka-identify kung ano ba yung ruta, anong status ng mga operators natin dun sa mga ruta na yon, dahil parang naguluhan ako ng konti. Yun lang po, Madam Chairperson.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Sen Joel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I just pursue that particular issue because just like Senator Nancy, medyo naguluhan din po ako, no? Ang target, if I am correct, as I was listening attentively to Sir Delgra of LTFRB, 1379, yung ba yung target? Tapos 611 lang yung nakapagbigay. So meaning to say, yung DOTR rationalization study mentioned in several LTFRB's circular, hindi pa talaga tapos yan. And ilan lamang yung routes that have been covered by this study. Is that correct, sir?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Go ahead, Chair Delga.
Perhaps to put it simply, if I may, for the sake of having to simplify it a little bit, Senator Joel, there are two types of planning routes, yung route rationalization po. Yung local, yung in kaugnayan, in partnership and in coordination with the local government unit, doon sa local routes nila, sa loob ng kanilang jurisdiction. For example, in Bulacan, ano yung mga rota sa loob ng Bulacan na pwedeng ipaplano ng probinsya ng Bulacan? Hindi po lalagpas. Kasi kung lalagpas po niyan, then you need to consult with the neighboring province in order to firm up that route that cuts across jurisdiction. In the same way with a city, for example, a city, say, for example, in Angeles City. So yung ruta sa loob ng Angeles City, yun ang pinaplano lang ng LGU ng Angeles City. Now, that is one type of route planning. The other type of route planning, yung malakihan po, yung sinabi po namin, ang tawag, anecdotally, we call it the MUSEP Route Rationalization Study. Ito po yung mas malakihang route rationalization study that covers not only the 17 LGU of Metro Manila, but also the neighboring the neighboring LGUs around the neighboring provinces of Metro Manila. Some parts of Bulacan, some LGUs in Rizal, some LGUs in Laguna, and some LGUs in Cavite. Because as I've mentioned, the concept of route is that, especially in a metropolis as big as Metro Manila, they cut across jurisdiction. So ibig sabihin, yung pagpaplano, malakihan din. Aside from that po, meron ding malakihan na route rationalization study, yung tinatawag po naming interprovincial, interregional. Ibig sabihin, yung mga rota na tumatahak across regions, kailangan po nating paplanuhin. For example, yung galing Tacloban, going to Metro Manila, 3 regions po pagdadaanan. Paano po natin paplanuhin yan? So tuloy-tuloy po yung pagpaplano patungkol dyan. Ang sinasabi lang po namin dito sa PUVMP, we laid the basis for the components on how to move forward insofar as the program implementation is concerned.
Okay, sir. Sir, bibigyan ko kayo ng example. Kayo na mismo nagsabi, no, yung sa Bulacan, no? And I have been following this up for the past 3-4 years, Madam Chair. 3 to 4 years. Unbelievable. I have all the documents to show, etc. In fact, I was about to bring this on the floor and deliver a privileged speech. For example, Sir Delgrano, itong LPTRP. Ngayon, how many local governments have submitted itong local public transport route?
As mentioned po sa pangkalahatan po, Senator Villanueva, 611 out of the 1,379 LGUs that were trained to plan their own routes. If I may just make a qualifier insofar as Bulacan is concerned, Your Honor, Senator Villanueva.
Sige po.
Yung sinabi ko po kanina na yung MUSEP route rationalization study, merong local public transport route plan for Bulacan per se. However, hindi po kabuuan ng probinsya ang maisakop doon sa LPTRP, yung pagpaplano ng probinsya para sa kanilang local routes. Kasi some of the LGUs na kalapit ng Metro Manila, kasama po doon sa mas malakihang route rationalization study, yung tinatawag po nating MUSEP route rationalization study. So yun po ang gusto ko lang sabihin na unlike in other places in Visayas and Mindanao, stand-alone yung pagpaplano ng local public transport route plan. Sa Bulacan po, some of these LGUs na isama po dito sa mas malakihang pagpaplano.
And yun ho yung nagiging problema, sir. If some of the LGUs have not prepared their LPTRPs, magkukos ho ng malaking delay in granting of their CPCs. Is that correct?
Actually po,
ganun ho yung nangyari dito, sir, no? Ganun yung nangyari. If the DOTR does not conduct a rationalization study and just rely on the LGUs, kung yung LGUs hindi din gumalaw para dun sa kanilang LPTRP, and the LGU does not prepare its LPTRP, the applicant may be held hostage by the inaction or delay of the LGU or the DOTR itself. Yan po yung nangyari dito, Sir Delgra, no? And it's a very specific example that I wanted to share with the body. I have been following this up for almost 4 years, 5 years, Madam Chair, no? And just last month, we forwarded again this concern to the DOTR. The fact is, there are applicants that are not able to get franchise because of lack of LTRP, no? However, in the response again ng DOTR, and this is the 4th, 5th year, pinabalik na naman kami. Sabi sa amin, bumalik kayo, papasabihin sa kanila, bumalik na naman ulit sila sa LTFRB. So ikot na ho sila ng ikot. Matatapos na po itong term ng buong administrasyon, ikot lang ho sila ng ikot. And that's just so disappointing, sir.
If I may, very short lang po. My apologies po, Senator Villanueva. On that particular issue, perhaps since you we will coordinate with the OTR as regards that. So that we, because
and I'm sorry, sir, no? I have been so cooperative, so supportive of LTFRB, DOTR. Secretary Tugade knows about this for years, And it's just unfortunate. No? I don't have the face anymore to face my kababayans, these cooperatives. Nung bayanihan, lagi kong nire-raise dito sa committee na ito. Not one of them, not one cooperative, from the tricycles to PUJs to UVs to lahat. Ni isa sa kanila walang nakatanggap nung ayuda, yung amelioration funding na pinasa ng Senado. Na proud kami sa Senate. Ito pinasa namin. Pero ni isa sa kanila walang nakakuha. That's just so unfortunate. Sorry, Madam Chair, no? And kaya iniiwasan ko munang umattend sana dahil mainit pa rin ulo ko dito sa usapin na ito. But I hope, Sir, LTFRB, I have very high respect to you, sir. I hope that you look into this. Thank you.
Yes, sir. We will address, sir.
Thank you, Senator Joel. I realize talagang ang tagal na nga nito at matagal ka na rin nakatuto. Kaya nga dito sa bayanihan, talagang naglagay tayo ng provision na walang pwedeng magbago muna ngayon. Na wala munang pwedeng ipairal na mga memorandum stopping our PUV drivers at this time na may pandemic, na kulang pa talaga yung suporta ng ating pamahalaan. I just want to bring up, just for the clarity of this discussion. Supposedly, pagka ikaw ay nagpa-upgrade, nagpa-modernize, ang Class 2 vehicle, gagastos ka ng 2.4 million. Pag Class 3, 2.6 million. Mga Chinese-made vehicles ito. Ang tanong ko dito kay Chairman Delgra, tama ba na 40,000 per month ang amortization para dito? Number one, that's the first question. No? Number two, kung kunyari gusto ngang makisanib ng ating mga drivers sa isang kooperatiba, yung kooperatiba na na-establish na yon, requirement ba nila na dapat naka-modernize ka na? I guess these are questions kasi mabigat talaga ito sa ating mga drivers. Pero I see the hand of Mr. Martin. Robert Martin, ano pong experience ninyo dito? Nakamute pa po kayo.
Isang magandang umaga, Madam Chair, Senator Nancy, Senator Joel, sa mga taga-DOTR at sa mga kasama natin sa hanay ng transportasyon. Ma'am, yung pong tinatanong niyong 40,000 o sa consolidation, nabanggit ni Mr. Yumul kanina na inaabot ng 40,000. Base po sa aking karanasan at nabanggit po niya na sa consolidation process, may ginagas pa rin pong 11,000 pesos ang operator. Madam Chair, through my experience, I formed a corporation. Nag-consolidate po ako doon sa mga tinatawag nating developmental route. Meron po kami, Madam Chair, na mga regular route sa Bulacan, Nueva Ecija, and also in Manila. But we did not spend so much money for the consolidation process. Ang amin pong ginawa, sinunod po namin ang proseso. We submitted all documents to LTFRB Region 3, LTFRB Central Office, LTFRB sa South, sa Region 4. Then, we paid the corresponding fees for the consolidation process. So maliit lang po ang gastos. Bakit ba kailangan mong mag-consolidate? Para sa kaalaman din po ng ating mga kasamahan, base po sa aking karanasan. Yung pong mga individual operator, base po rito sa tinatawag ng PUV Modernization Program, ay kailangan po ang isang ruta ay mag-consolidate, Madam Chair. Sapagkat hindi nga po inaalaw mangutang isang individual ng ating bangko. Through consolidation process, ang mga individual operators po, sila rin po ang magiging stockholder once they form a corporation or cooperative. Sila rin po ang may-ari ng mga sasakyan. Through their application, under consolidation, magkakaroon po silang manifestation na ang kanilang mga ruta ay ipinapangalan po nila sa isang cooperative o sa isang korporasyon. So they own also the unit na i-approve po ng board. So
okay, Mr. Martin, if I may cut you off, you know what, it's good that you were able to incorporate and consolidate. My question, sir, is, totoo ba na pag nag-modernize, mga 40,000 pesos ang amortization every month?
Madam Chair, napakalaki po niyan. At the moment, ang aking monthly amortization, even in Bulacan, in Manila, and in Nueva Ecija, inaabot po kami ng 27,000 to 29,000 a month.
Pero
Hindi.
modernized na po.
Modernized po yan.
And
Class
compliant.
3, yes po, Madam Chair.
Okay, next question. Ito naman po, sa dali lang po Mr. Martin. Ito sa kay Mr. Delgra. May nagpadala sa akin, may mga co-ops na registered and accredited, pero hindi pa rin considered consolidated kasi hindi pa nag-hearing ang LTFRB sa kanila. Yun daw ang dahilan kung bakit nauna pa yung mga ibang kumpanya na tinatawag nga na kapitalista, ganyan, iniipit nila yung drivers na nag-a-apply for consolidation. So ilan ba talaga ang nakapending sa inyo ngayon, Mr. Delgra, na nag-iintay ng hearing para magkaroon ng prangkisa o ma-accredit?
As to the numbers, Madam Chair, at the outset, if I may be given time to submit
Okay.
that to the
So si
committee.
Mr. Yumol,
I'm sorry. Madam
meron
Chair.
ba kayong application para mag-consolidate?
Opo, Madam Chair, actually may mga grupo po kami. Last 2019 pa po, nag-file na kami ng consolidation. Hanggang ngayon po wala pang notice of hearing. Tapos yung isa naman, nakapag-hearing po nung last December before the deadline of December 31. Ang problema lang, katulad nung nasabi nyo may sumulat sa inyo, nauna pa sa amin yung mga bagong operator. Kahit nakapending na po namin, binigyan
Okay,
pa rin.
Mr. Delgra, sagutin. Sorry, kina-cut off ko kayo para we can have more of a discussion here dahil I don't want this hearing to overextend. Mr. Delgra, sagutin po ninyo, bakit hanggang ngayon hindi pa na-approve o hindi pa na-hear yung application ng grupo ni Mr. Yumul?
Again, insofar as Mr. Yumol's situation is concerned, I will have to refer to Region 3 on the status of the case, Madam Chair. That will form part of my submission to the committee.
Yes, we will follow up on that, sir. Kasi, syempre, ayaw naman natin na paratangan kayo na makakorporasyon lang, ganyan. Okay naman ang korporasyon Basta merong inclusivity. Ibig sabihin, yung mga dating nandun na, wag naman sila pa yung naagrabyado, di ba? So, okay naman po yun na mag-consolidate tayo. Pero, yung mga dati nang nandyan, kumbaga, para bang sila pa yung na-displace. So, yun lang po yung sa amin. So, we will really follow up kasi our job here in the Senate is also to make sure that the disenfranchised are heard. Diba? So, okay. Now, I would like to hear naman. Yeah.
Just to also add lang, Madam Chair, dun sa isasubmit, baka pwede rin ho makahingi yung how many CPC applicants are unable to get their applications approved due to lack of LPTRP, Madam Chair. Ayaw nating maging hostage sila just because of this. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes,
Madam Chair.
we will comply.
Sen. Nancy, just one moment. A brief reply, a brief question from Sen. Nancy. A brief reply.
Madam Chair,
Okay.
pandagdag lang dun for submission, kung pwede pakilagay na din yung kung kailan ba sila nag-apply para makita natin kung gaano katagal na talaga pending yung mga applications nila. Yun lang po, Madam Chair.
I think that's a good point. So I want a brief answer from you, Chairman Delga, for regarding addressing the question of Senator Villanueva and also the request of Senator Nancy. And then I want to hear from the Move as One coalition. Kasi ito advocacy group ito. They're neither with the LTFRB or with the drivers per se, but what will be better for the flow of transportation in our country. So go ahead, Chair Delgra, please respond.
Yes po, very quickly, our quick reply is as to the request for submission from Senator Bina and Senator Villanueva. Together with the particular concern raised by Mr. Yumol, we will submit, Madam Chair. If not tomorrow, 2 days from now, insofar as the data are concerned. Thank you, Madam Chair. But if I may qualify, just to a very quick rejoinder lang po. Pagpapalinaw lang po ito. Not pagpapalinaw lang po. Yung sinasabi po nating petition for consolidation po, hindi yung petition to apply for a franchise. Yung sinasabi po nating consolidation, it is a petition to consolidate. Ibig sabihin po, Yung kung ano yung existing unit nyo, kasama pa rin po doon sa petition for consolidation. Kung ano yung rota, kung saan kayo tumatahak, yun din po yung rota na tatahakin nyo even after consolidation. Yung next steps na sinasabi ko po, yung pagkukuha ng bagong unit at yung pagpapatakbo ng mga modern units under what we call a fleet management system. Yun po yung mga moving forward, yung mga other components sa programa. But it starts with a consolidation. I just want to keep on emphasizing that, Madam Chair. Thank you very much po.
So what you're saying, Chairman Delgra, is that after they consolidate, there's no guarantee that they will get a franchise. There's certain requirements yet to be met. And part of that is maybe modernization of their fleet. Am I correct?
The petition for consolidation will result to a consolidated single franchise for that co-op. Ibig sabihin, may prangkisa pa rin, Madam Chair. In the interim po, just to describe the process, essentially, we would still be using whatever existing units they have. So long as they are roadworthy, papasa sa LTO. Yun lang po ang sinasabi natin dito. Yung sinasabi po natin na pag-uutang sa bangko, kung may pera po sila, hindi na po kailangan pumunta sa bangko. Pwede silang dumiretso at bumili ng tinatawag na compliant unit. Those units na pumasa na sa national standards under the DTI. And then, with the other components of fleet management, pwede na lang patakbuhin. But what I'm saying is that it is the modern, I would like to re-emphasize it again, the deployment of modern unit is not a requirement for modernization, at least at the time of filing, and even at the time of the grant of the consolidated franchise.
So this March deadline does not mean that all of these jeeps need to be modernized. I mean, as long as they're
Absolutely, Madam
roadworthy.
Chair.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's for the record, right, sir?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. May we hear from MOVAS 1, Dr. Robert C. I heard you have a brief presentation.
Senator Grace Poe, Madam Chair, thank you very much for allowing us to speak. I will just speak, because we have a fairly long comment and report on PUV modernization. We will make this available po to the industry and to the public. Kasi po we have been following PUV modernization already for many years. Our view as a commuter group is it is absolutely essential. Mobility is a basic human need. We need safe, sufficient, convenient public transport. At hindi po ito posible unless we make some fundamental changes. And from our point of view, yung fundamental changes na ito involve not only yung vehicle upgrade or modernization, but a change in the business model. Dapat mawala na rin yung boundary system natin because it promotes also yung on-street competition which is unsafe. Importante po yung consolidation for the basic reason na hindi kayang gumawa ng schedule, hindi kayang gumawa ng predictable timetable for commuters unless all units on a route operate as one team. So importante po, we are pleading to our colleagues and partners in the transport industry, importante po yung consolidation for this purpose. It will lead to efficiency and convenience of commuters who are your customers. So that is quite basic po. Second point is that we need to have a lot more support to the road transport sector. For many decades, in fact, from the start of this government, since independence, yung framework natin is parang yung road public transport, parang private sector enterprise yan. And for the longest period, halos walang support galing sa gobyerno. And this is where we need to rectify the long history of neglect. In fact, when you look at the budgets not just last year's budget, many decades of budgets, halos walang support for public transport infrastructure. Yun yung, for example, yung support sa mga bus stops, terminals, garages, depots, stations, plus yung, for example, yung PUV-only lanes, halos walang support in terms of the operations of public transport. So nakikita natin, in almost all other countries, public transport is high quality and available. Kasi po may subsidy from government. And the problem po is we often think of yung subsidy for public transport as a bad word. We should now change that around. We should think of ways how we can support our public transport in terms of yung fleet replacement as well as for yung operations. If the operations need a subsidy, so be it. If our infrastructure needs more support, we need to make that happen. Kasi po, yung infrastructure natin, for so many years, it was largely to support motor vehicles, mainly private cars. So yung history of highway and road development was to support yung motor vehicle owners. And recently, syempre, railway development has progressed. So maganda rin to. Pero kulang na kulang yung support for road-based public transport. So this is why we support fully yung bill po ni Senator Grace Poe. A key point also is sa PUV modernization. In the past, I think the balance between carrots and sticks, hindi maganda. You know, it was mostly yung sticks, pero kulang sa carrots. Importante ngayon yung incentives. We need to actually provide sufficient support, financing, subsidy to help our colleagues, drivers, workers, operators in the transport sector to consolidate and to modernize. So maganda po yung lalakihin natin ang equity subsidy. And here we would actually go not just for yung proposal dito. I think the current bill has a proposal for I think a 10% subsidy based on the value of the vehicle. It should be more in the nature of mga 25%. And in the past, yung Move as One coalition is pushing for 500,000 as the minimum equity subsidy for a replacement of the old jeepney. So if we have that level of subsidy, it will actually attract a lot more support from our colleagues in the transport sector and will facilitate the movement. And when you think of it, Madam Chair, you know the amount that would be required in terms of that equity subsidy is much less than even the investment in the Metro Manila subway. So Metro Manila subway is of course a good thing. But when we think of all our public transport users, commuters nationwide, they need as much attention as the potential users of the Metro Manila subway. So this is not something that is outrageous that we are asking for. We are also
Mr.
asking...
C?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. C, can you just submit your recommendations? But I'm glad that you pointed out that the subsidy needs to be at least 25%.
Yes,
when we present this and correlating it also with the other investments in transport, whereas this is direct subsidy to the drivers that need the jobs and the support of the government. So thank you, but I would also like to give a chance before I give my recommendation. I want to hear a brief statement from Piston and also from the JODAP and Stop and Go Coalition. Kung pwede lang po, kasi lahat gusto kong bigyan ng pagkakataon, no? Pero kailangan tayo mag-adjourn soon. So Piston muna, ano po yung masasabi ninyo dito sa usapin natin ngayon?
Magandang umaga po, Madam Senador, at siyempre sa ating lahat ng ating mga senador, at gayon din sa ating kinatawa ng LTFRB. Ang usapin po ng modernization, Madam, ay alas magli 5 taon na at 5 taon na rin na nag-i-cause yung kabuhayan ng mga driver at mga operator. At lagi itong nasa pangamba. Sabi nga po kanina ni Pangulong Yumul, ay dalawa yung pinangangambahan namin yung pandemya at saka itong plano ng LTFRB na i-wise out yung kabuhayan ng mga driver at mga operator. Dahil yung usapin po ng modernization na itinutulak ng ating ng LTFRB at ng DOTR ay bahagi ito ng programa sa usapin po ng monopolyo, sa usapin ng transportasyon. Dahil malalaki na lamang ng mga negosyante ang binibigyan nila ng karapatan para dito sa usapin ng pagpapatakbo ng moda ng transportasyon dito sa ating bansa. Kami po sa bahagi po namin sa Piston ay wala kaming tutol doon sa usapin ng modernization. Ang mariin po namin kinukundi na dito, itong absolute na bakit kailangan namin pumasok sa corporation, bakit namin kailangan pumasok sa kooperatiba, bakit namin kailangan pumasok sa pledge management, na kung tutuusin po yung mga association ng mga driver at mga operator, ito ay consolidated na nagsama-sama yung mga operator para magtipon at makapagbuo ng samahan at makapagserbisyo sa mga mamamayan. Pero bakit tinutulak kami ng LTFRB na pumasok kami sa consolidation? Sinasabi po nila sa ilalim po ng 2017-011 na sinasabi nila one route, one franchise, one operator. Ibig sabihin yan ay yung one route and one franchise ay talagang hahawakan ng malalaking mga corporation na may kapasidad na magpatakbo ng mga moda ng transportasyon. Tapos yung sinasabi po kanina ni Chairman Digra, Madam, ay yung usapin po ng route rationalization, ay bakit po sa ngayon ay yung mga mismong lehitimong may mga ruta ng mga jeep ay linalagyan po nila ng mga modernized na mga minibus. Iniwawaysat po nila mga traditional of jeepney na ito yung matagal na nagsiservisyo sa mga ruta. Ito ho ba yung layunin ng modernization, tanggalan ng kabuhayan, yung ating mga driver at mga operator, at patuloy na mahirapan din ang ating mga mananakay, ang ating mga mamamayan.
Okay. Thank you po. I think I see your point na yung punto ninyo. Again, ang kailangan dito inclusivity yung nang nadi-displace na iba. AltoDAP. Hindi. I'm sorry. Ano bang isa pang grupo? AltoDAP at saka Samahan Transport Operators. Kung hindi pa, okay, Mr. Vargas, kayo po, AltoDAP. Or stop and go na lang muna.
Yes, ma'am.
AltoDAP muna, mabilis
Yes,
lang. Tapos stop and go, Samahan ng Transport.
Magandang umaga po, Madam Chair, at sa lahat ng senador, sa lahat po ng... Ako po, may issue lang ako. 4 na bagay lang po, mabilis lang to. Unang-una po, yung consolidation natin, hanggang March 31 na lang. Ngayon, paano na po, yung mga ibang magko-consolidation pa, tatanggapin pa o hindi na? Pagkatapos po, yung po ba, paano na po kung hindi tinanggap, yun po ba'y mapupunta sa malalaking kooperatiba or korporasyon? Ang pangalawa ko po, yung mga rota po ng traditional jeepney na hindi pa tumatakbo, patakbuhin na po dahil 1 year na po, nagutom, may mga namatay na po dyan. Tapos po, kagaya po, yung sinasabi kong rota ng traditional jeep, kagaya po ng Antipolo Cubao, merong sulat ang mabutihing mayor namin, si Andrea Inares, na sumulat si LTFRB na patakbuhin na itong traditional jeep. Dated po ito ng December 10, 2020. Hanggang ngayon po, wala pa. Pagkatapos po, yung pong mga rota ng jeep, bakit po pinapasok ng mga buses? Tapos po, yung isa pa, yung pong sa modern, yung bangko po natin dalawa, may sapat po bang pondo para i-modernize natin lahat ng moda ng transportation na PUJ dito sa buong Pilipinas. Yun lang po, Madam Chair. Salamat po.
Thank you sa inyong very pointed pero maikling presentation, Mr. Vargas. Stop and Go Coalition naman.
Ay, magandang umaga po, Madam Chair. Sa kaalaman po ng lahat, ang Stop and Go po ay hindi po tumututol sa programa ng DOTR, LTFRB. Kaya lang po, hindi namin po kaya. Dahilan sa mga sumusunod. Una, yung consolidation na napag-uusapan kanina. Itong consolidation kasi, Madam Chair, ito yung gagawin na kooperatiba or korporasyon, yung aming dating kabuhayan bilang isang individual franchise. So pag kami kooperatiba o korporasyon na po, Madam Chair, mawawala na po yung aming karapatan, kapanatagan sa aming kita. Kasi depende na sa pag-uusap ng kooperatiba or korporasyon kung magkano ang ibibigay po sa amin. Pangalawa, itong consolidation, Madam Chair, dito sinasabi ni Chairman Delgra kanina na kami ba ay tatanggapin kahit asosasyon kami na mag-apply ng consolidation? Ang sagot ni Chairman, opo. Kaya lang, marami kang dapat i-comply. Una, doon kasi sa consolidation, Madam Chair, kailangan mong magsumite ng meron kang may bibigay na terminal bawat dulo ng inyong ruta. At siyempre, bago ka makakuha ng terminal, meron kang i-apply sa City Hall or munisipyo na para bigyan ka ng mayor's permit. So dito pa lang sa zoning na proseso ng mayor's permit, pag ikaw ay pinupolitika o ayaw ka ng isang LGU, hindi ka bibigyan. Katulad yung sinabi kanina ni Senator Villanueva na magiging hostage po kami dito. Kaya yan po yung sa consolidation. At dito yata sa consolidation, Madam Chair, parang dito yata ginagamit ng LTFRB ngayon kung bakit hindi kami nakakatakbo hanggang ngayon. Kasi yung biyaheng Heritage Monumento, biyaheng Santo Niño Monumento, nakakatakbo na sila mula pa noong October. Pero kami, mula noong March 17 hanggang ngayon, ay hindi pa po kami nakakatakbo. Maraming ruta yung aming nasasakupan na hindi nakakatakbo sa ngayon. Yung Santa Maria Monumento, MacArthur, Santa Maria Lex Monumento, Marilao
Ano po daw,
Monumento.
ano daw po ang dahilan kung bakit hindi kayo nakakapagpatakbo pa doon sa mga ruta na yon?
Hindi ko alam, Madam Chair, kasi sa totoo lang meron na kaming sulat noong July na nakikiusap sa LTFRB na kami naman willing na sumunod dito sa protocol na ipinatutupad ng IETF. Pero wala silang sagot, Madam Chair.
Chairman Delgra, bakit kaya po wala pang sagot hanggang ngayon?
On this particular aspect, Your Honor, I have to get back to my team on this particular route that they're referring to. I'm not prepared to answer the question at this point in time. But
okay, we'll ask for the submission, Chair.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Zaldi, tama ba yung sinabi ninyo na kung meron kayong kooperatiba, kailangan meron din kayong mga terminal?
Yes, ayon po sa requirements po sa pag-apply ng consolidation. Batay din sa requirements na ibinaba ng LTFRB, Madam Chair.
Oo, kasi syempre yung paglalagyan ng mga jeep na yon, importante. So malaking gastos rin yan. Importante na magkaroon talaga ng designated areas.
Yes.
No? Pero yun nga, added cost yon kasi bibilin mo yung lupa o kaya irerentahan mo yung lupa, hindi po ba?
At ang mabigat, Madam Chair, kung ikaw ay inayawan ng LGU, hindi ka bigyan ng zoning. Kasi hindi ka naman nila kapartido, Madam Chair. So ma-hostage nga kami dito.
Okay, thank you. Thank you po.
Yes, Madam Chair. Hindi katulad kasi yung dati na sa individual franchise po kami, ang tinitinan na lang namin kung paano namin ma-maintain yung aming sasakyan na maayos para safe na sakyan ng mga tao. Pero sa ngayon kasi, doon sa programa na maganda yung presentasyon ng LTFRB, kaya lang iba kasi sa nangyayari. Katulad niyan, sinabi yung consolidation. Pangalawa, yung route rationalization. Kahit ikaw ay kooperatiba na, Madam Chair, o korporasyon, kung ikaw ay hindi naman maka-avail doon sa unit na halimbawa itong ruta namin na Monumento Muñoz, kailangan class 3, dito sa NLEX, class 3, MacArthur, class 3, Commonwealth, class 3. Pag hindi ka rin maka-avail ng ganito na unit, hindi ka rin po pwede dito sa ruta nito, kundi aalisin ka, Madam Chair.
Talaga? Kasi kanina sinabi naman ni Chairman Delgra, hindi naman kailangan kaagad lahat yon. As long as roadworthy, di ba, Chairman?
Madam Chair, he mentioned about a route that traverses EDSA, if I may understand it that way, from Monumento to Muñoz. Kasi may polisiya po yung MMDA together with DOTR and LTFRB na except to traverse, except na tatawid, hindi po pwede yung ibang modes of public transport along EDSA except bus.
Okay, I understand po. Nga,
Siguro
bawal
yung
nga
dalawang
mga
punto
jeeps
lang,
doon.
yung rota at sa yung sinasabi niyang bagong unit, baka magkaibang punto lang po ito. We just need to clarify, Madam Chair.
Yes, I understand your point, Chairman Delgra. Maraming salamat po, sir. Senator Villanueva, before we go to Samahang Transport, I recognize Senator Villanueva. Go ahead, Sen. Joel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, just one point that I'd like to raise as being echoed a while ago by Piston, Altodap, Stop and Go with regard to consolidation. No? We heard that small operators are recommended to consolidate to pool resources, meet minimum credit requirements. But Chairman Delgra, do you have any data on consolidated operators that still failed in their loan applications? I mean, how many of the 76,000 plus consolidated operators still failed in their loan application?
Senator Villanueva, Your Honor, sa ngayon po, wala akong specific data but we will submit along that line. But if I may just qualify the observation being made, yung financial component, and if I may, Madam Chair, because I will also, LTFRB might want to also say something about the provision in the bill addressing the financial cost of the modernization. So as regards din po, please allow me 2 or 3 minutes to explain the financial component po. The financial component of the program, as approved by the government financial institution, is a formula which we call 5, 6, 7, 8 before. Now it's 160. But we'll start with the 5. Yung 5 po is yung 5% equity. I'm sorry, 5% equity. So it's a very low equity on the part of the operator. I'm sorry, on the part of the borrower applicant who is a co-op or a corporation. Pangalawa, yung 6 po, yung 6% interest. Again, under prevailing rate po, mababa pa rin yan. Alam natin, like for example, going back to the equity, as we have made consultations, yung equity, pag uutang ka, kukuha ka ng isang sasakyan galing sa kasa, umaabot po sa mga 15 to 20 or even higher equity. No? But insofar as this program is concerned, the OTR was able to convince the government financial institution to support this program in a very generous manner. So yung 5% equity, 6% interest, and the one I mentioned earlier about 7 years to pay, we know that, and the only collateral here, Your Honor, is the unit. No? And we know that the unit, when you use it over time, is depreciating. So the risk on the part of the GFIs is getting higher or increasing over time, and yet they're willing to extend the unit. Yung 8 po originally represents the 80,000 equity subsidy, which is actually coming from Congress, no? By way of a budget. But the OTR, Secretary Artugade, especially during the time of the pandemic, in order to push the program further amidst the pandemic, issued another department order doubling the amount, kaya naging 160,000 pesos per unit na po yung equity subsidy.
Chairman Delgra, may I just cut you there? Kasi when you talk about kanina yung 5% equity, 6% interest, etc. For example, I have here with me yung sa DBP. Ang kasama ko dito, borrowers should be a co-op or corporation eh. Shuttle mortgage, AFCS, GPS, franchise for 7 years. And again, borrowers should be a cooperative or a corporation. I remember distinctly, Madam Chair, anong time na meron tayong TWG, yung transport group ng FEDJUDAP during the August 2018 TWG meeting of the Committee on Transportation, they are already complaining about the difficulty in complying with the requirements to access the credit facilities and financing as well, Madam Chair. Na pati yung I remember yung fleet system, no, if I remember it right, and the group said that bank requirement have to to have end-to-end terminals is not feasible, especially in a densely populated area. I just hope that this is already being addressed, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair, just to point that out.
Thank you. Can we hear now from Samahang Transport Operators ng Pilipinas? Kaisa-isang babae yata ngayon dyan sa, wala si Ma'am Zenny. Oh, go ahead. What's your name, ma'am? Naka-mute pa po kayo. Ma'am, di ko pa rin kayo marinig.
Ayun. Hello, ma'am.
Ano po pangalan niyo ulit?
Juliet De Jesus po.
Okay, Ma'am Juliet, go ahead po. Ano pong
Naririnig
pananaw
niyo
ninyo?
po ako, Madam Chair? Naririnig
Naririnig.
niyo po ako?
Opo, naririnig po. Go ahead.
Salamat po sa pagkakataon at pag-iimbita sa akin. Ako po ay nasa city operation. Ngayon po, meron po kasi kaming, yung modernization na to, meron na po kaming rationalized route na ibinigay ng LTFRB. 35 routes po ito. Ito po, yung binigyan kami ng special permit, pero hindi po ito yung existing route namin before kasi due to COVID. Ngayon, ang naging problema po namin dito sa mga rationalized route namin, nag-o-overlap po kami sa jeepney. Yung po mga traditional jeep na pinaandar po nila, nag-o-overlap dun sa rutang ibinigay nila sa mga iba-ibang rutang ibinigay sa bus. Nabanggit nga po kanina ni Mr. Vargas na yung antipolo, inaano niya sa amin, sinasabi niyang hindi kami dapat doon kasi matagal na sila doon. Pero wala po kaming magagawa kung naibigay sa amin yan ng LTFRB. Ang nagiging problema lang po namin dito sa mga rationalized route, wala po kaming mga staging area, nagkakagulo po yung mga bus namin sa mga rutang na ibigay kasi po mahirap po kumuha ng mga garahe, lalo na malaki po yung aming bus, sa mga rutang na ibigay sa amin na dating jeepney route. Yan po yung isang problema namin. And number 2 po, hindi po napunta yung mga sa ruta na to, yung mga area-based operator. May sample po ako sa area-based operator. Ang isang operator po na nandun po sa San Jose del Monte, sa Bulacan, nag-ooperate, napapunta po ng Antipolo, Cubao. Kita niyo po yung dead run namin from San Jose del Monte going to Cubao is a 30-kilometer dead run. Ngayon po, hiningi po namin ito sa LTFRB na to allow drop and pick up para naman po yung losses namin sa expenses namin sa diesel madagdagan ng konti yung aming kita. Kasi po, sampulan ko lang po kayo ng 30 kilometers dead run. Hindi lang po Bulacan to, sa lahat po na ruta ng rationalized route. 30 kilometers dead run, noong pong nagkwenta kami, 30 pesos pa lang po yung diesel. Ngayon po, 38 na. So, round trip po yung isang bus, 60 kilometers yun. Ang talo po namin sa isang araw, sa isang unit, 2,280 pesos. Kung nag-ooperate po kayo ng 30 units, ang laki po ng aming losses. Samantalang yung ibinigay po sa aming ruta, hindi po kami makabayad. Break even lang. Bayad sa diesel, bayad sa driver, konduktor, na hindi po namin mabayaran yung aming mga garahe na nirerentahang malaki. Kasi nando pa po kami, matagal na kami doon. And ito pa po yung aming problema. Yung pong aming modernization, considering nasa pandemic tayo, kailangan mag-replete ka pag nag-phase out ka ng 15 years, hinihingi po sana namin sa DOTR at saka sa LTFRB, bigyan naman po kami kahit na konting leeway, yung 2 years man lang na moratorium na tanggapin nila kami kahit phase out na kami ng 2 taon. Pag natapos na po yung COVID, pwede na po kaming mag-replete uli. Tapos ang problema po namin, yung mga old loans po namin, lahat po kasi kami maraming utang because modernization 2013 pa po kami sumusunod sa LTFRB. Ngayon po yung mga utang namin, lahat po yan, dinidimanda na kami ng bangko, inaaway na kami ng bangko, lahat po yan, wala kaming magawa because yung operation po namin ngayon is just to serve the commuting public. Kasi po, meron kaming obligasyon being a public transport operator. Sana naman po, sa pagkakataong ito, nandiyan po si Chairman Delgra, nandiyan ang DOTR, kasi po yung Land Bank at saka DBP, Marami na pong nag-apply sa amin, pero just the same, wala pa hong nakakakuha kasi maraming issues na hindi maintindihan kasi po na consortium, na ganito. Sana maintindihan naman po sana ngayon ng LTFRB at DOTR, tulungan kami dun sa old accounts namin, how we will communicate with the commercial bank before, o kaya itong Land Bank and DBP, if they can help us out, para maayos po namin kahit na magkaroon kami ng interest payment lang, moratorium para unti-unti. Tapos po yung sinasabi naming dead run, napakalaking tulong po sa amin yan. Kasi mababawasan ang aming loss on a daily basis. Tapos po yung tinatawag na, ano po, yung overlapping nga po ng jeep at saka ng, sampulan ko po kayo ng isang ruta. Isang ruta na 173 units lang ang bus. Ang other modes of transport nasa 2,000 ho. Merong jeep, merong UB, may modern cooperative, etc. na pare-pareho pong nandun sa mga ruta na yan. Yan po yung nakikita
Salamat po.
namin problema.
Chairman Delgra, can you briefly respond to some of her concerns? Maybe not all, then you can just submit those later on.
Yes po. If I may just focus on the financial part po. We are actually going to have a coordination meeting with the government financial institution. So insofar as DBP and Land Bank is concerned, yung concern nila tungkol sa existing loans, we will take it up with the banks this week po. And we will keep you updated on that one. Pangalawa, insofar as yung meron pong sinusulong, konsepto po ito ng DOTR, no? With Secretary Tugade na sumusulong dito, yung bus modernization program. So hindi lang po yung sa PUJ, kundi meron po sa bus. So it's actually being pushed with the two government financial institutions. So kung this is insofar as yung sinasabi ni Juliet De Jesus patungkol doon sa pagdadrop and substitute, yung pagpapalit ng luma doon sa pagpapalit ng bago doon sa mga luma, they can avail of the benefit of the bus modernization program. In short, briefly lang po, yun po ang response namin. But in the other concerns, we're taking note of it so that nililista na po namin, ma'am, Madam Chair, so that we'll be able to not only address the committee, but even address De Jesus directly on the matter. Thank you po.
Oh, thank you. Kasi we're taking note of this transcript para we can remind you. Actually, Chairman Delgra, if I can request for you to recommend to me, because I'm also chairman of Banking and Financial Institutions, the committee in the Senate. And one of the bills that is put forward is the guide bill, which will increase capitalization of the land bank in the DBP. Perhaps we can put a provision there that says a certain portion of that should be for transport modernization, focusing on smaller enterprises within the transport modernization program, meaning the cooperatives.
Yes po. Madam Chair, very quickly lang po on 2 points that you have mentioned and so far as the financial cost is concerned. If you would recall at my opening statement, we have expressed support to the bill. Among the things that we appreciated is institutionalizing the financial support to the modernization program, which, as you have mentioned in your proposed bill under Section 10, an appropriation coming from the MVUC. That would, if ever this will materialize, Madam Chair, this will create a huge impact on the ongoing modernization program. And that's the reason why, insofar as the financial support that is being pushed under the proposed bill, we would support. Pangalawa po, we know that insofar as the government financial institutions are concerned, at the start, as we have mentioned earlier, the financial package is very generous. And therefore, on the part of the bank, as we might understand, the little that I know of banking practice, tataas yung risk, lending risk on the part of the bank. Having said that, nakita po natin initially, this is anecdotal, Madam Chair, so that you'll probably appreciate from where the banking sectors are coming, the government financial institutions are coming from. Initially, DBP and Land Bank allocated 1.5 billion pesos each from their own funds. But over time, Land Bank has exceeded their target. Ibig sabihin po, ina-accommodate pa nila yung mga loan applications coming from the co-op even beyond the ceiling that they have set initially. Kaya ngayon, I understand they have increased it to 5 billion. On the part of DBP, the same thing also, 1.5 billion initially. And ganun din po, dahil sa maraming loan application, they have increased it also to 5 billion, which I understand has already been increased beyond 5 billion. I am not at liberty at this point kung magkano nang itinaas beyond the 5 billion that they have initially set. By the way, Madam Chair, this increase actually happened during the pandemic, and that's the reason why. What am I saying here, Madam Chair, and Your Honors, is that even the government financial institutions see the need to support this, and I would like to believe, we would like to believe that with the risk that they're taking, we would like to support the program, no? As they are actually supporting the program. So, going back to what we have mentioned in support of this proposed bill, mas nakakatulong palalo dito sa proposal na percentage of the MBUC will actually go to funding the financial cost of the modernization program. Thank you very much.
I guess my concern also, and I don't know if I can obtain this information from the banks, but there are a lot in the bank, a big portion of it might have been allocated to companies that have already the financial capability. Baka yung maliliit hindi nakaka-obtain. So I'm glad to know that they're utilizing the allocated funds for the transport sector is being utilized, but who are benefiting from it? I think we need a breakdown of that. I think lastly, I want to hear from the Truck Association very briefly. Senator Joel, you have your hands raised.
Yes, Madam Chair, I have another meeting. I would just like to put on record, Madam Chair, that I have studied very well in this hearing. I have tons of questions here with me. I would lovely wanted to ask the updates on Bayanihan allocation for our displaced PUV drivers, operators. Sana mabigyan tayo ng update kahit na submission na lang, Madam Chair. But lastly, Madam Chair, that I'd like to raise, because I remember I was looking at my schedule and I saw the last hearing that I attended in this committee hearing about PUV modernization was last February 2018. This was 3 years ago, Madam Chair, and LTFRB said that there were already 3,000 operators who signified to purchase modern vehicles. And yet, Madam Chair, the data shared by Chair Delgra earlier said that there are only 2,929 modern OFG compliant and operational PUVs as of March 2021. It did not increase at all, Madam Chair, in the past years, and probably, I'm not sure about the figures, there are roughly about 200,000 PUVs. But clearly, Madam Chair, more has to be done to make the loan financing options more bearable or affordable for our operators to modernize. And thank you very much for calling this hearing, and thank you for your passionate care for our PUV sector. And we know that we have a lot of things to do pa. Maraming salamat, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Joel, for keeping track of all that data for how many years. Talaga nagre-review ka. Maraming salamat. Pedjadap, maikli lang po kasi kailangan na ako mag-adjourn.
Maraming salamat po sa pagkakaimbita niyo po sa amin dito, Madam Chair, lalong-lalo na po sa mga kasama ko marami na pong natalakay tungkol po dito sa Public Utility Vehicle Modernization Program. Ang sa amin lamang po, ang concern lamang po namin, ang sinasabi po ng ilan nating kasama na wala daw pong gastusin tungkol po dyan sa consolidation process. Meron po. Unang-una, ano po ba yung mga gastusin ng pagpumasok ka sa consolidation process? Meron pong mga fee, lalong-lalo na po lahat ng mga existing operator na nagkaroon po ng mga hindi po nakolekta nila yung mga annual book at ITR. Yan po yung nagkakahalaga ng halos 40,000. Hindi po yan sa pagkakamali ng individual operator, samantalang sila naman po ay nagbabayad annually ng mga registration po nila, pero ang nangyayari po pag dumulog po sila sa LTFRB, wala pong record, wala rin po sila na misplace din po sa kanila yung mga record payment slip, yun po yung sinasabing malaking pinagbabayaran. Pero yung mga fee, lalong-lalo po sa mga hearing, yan po talaga yung ikinukonsidera namin nagpapasakit ng ulo ng individual operator. Secondly, question lang po sa ating mahal na chairman ng LTFRB. Maraming pagkakataon na po akong dumulog sa LTFRB. Marami po kaming ruta, operator at drivers na na-displace po talaga. Example na lang po, binabanggit po kanina ng ating mahal na chairman, Chairman Delgra, ilang beses na po akong dumulog sa ating LTFRB. Ipinakikiusap ko, nag-start po itong pandemic na to last March pa po hanggang sa kasalukuyan po. Hindi pa po sila nakakabiyahe. Ang sinasagot po sa amin ng LTFRB, wala pa naman po daw talagang pwedeng bumiyahe sa area kung saan po sila. Ang tinutukoy po kanina ay Muñoz Monumento. Meron po naman talagang nakalaang ruta na isnabit na rin po namin sa LTFRB nung mga panahong nabubuhay pa si Ma'am Seni Maranan. Pero hanggang sa kasalukuyan po, hindi po sila sana po konting konsiderasyon sa mga na-displaced na driver at operator. Secondly, ito pong Pandakan Leong Ginto. 240 existing franchise meron po dito. Pero sa kasalukuyan po, tumatakbo po dito is 30 unit na modernized jeep. Ano pong mangyayari doon sa more than 200 unit existing franchise? Ano po bang mangyayari sa kanila? Bababaliwala na po sana sila. Ang isang kahilingan ko lamang po, kami naman po ay lagi noon sumusunod po sa mga polisiya ng ating samahan, ng ating gobyerno. Hindi po kami tumututol sa mga mabubuting ginagawa ng ating pamahalaan. Lalong-lalo na po, pakikinabangan po ito ng mga next generation. Ito po yung hinaing ko. Kung hindi po talaga sila mapapabiyahe, bakit hindi po? Meron naman po talagang inilaan ng ating pamahalaan na subsidy na 160,000 para po magkaroon ng win-win solution at ma-consolidate po nila ang kanilang mga dokumento. Bakit hindi po natin bigyan ng gobyerno sila o kaya i-waive na lang po, magkaroon po ng amnesty doon sa mga hindi na po nakapagre-rehistro dahil nga po sa kakapusan ng perang kanilang pinoproblemang malaki ngayon. Meron pa po akong ito pong Baclaran, Blumentritt, Quiapo, na-displace po silang lahat dyan. Existing po lahat ang sinasabi kong mga ruta na yan. Na-displace po sila dyan. Maraming beses na rin po kung umapila sa LTFRB. Sana naman po bigyan sila ng pagkakataon na makabiyahe muna para naman po makapag-ipon sila. Kung hindi po kaya ng magkaroon ng subsidy galing po dun sa 160 na pinapangako po ng gobyerno, sila po mismo makapag-ipon ng sapat na pera para po pagpasok nila po doon sa consolidation procedure at may mga requirements, may mga gastusin, maka-afford naman po sana sila. Meron po kami sa Region 4, sa Region 4A, lahat po sila doon consolidated na. Pero ano pong nangyayari ngayon? Hindi ba rin po sila makabiyahe ng maayos dahil 50% lang po ang inaalaw ng ating gobyerno. Pero marami pong nangongolorum doon. Lalo na po kapag lumabas po yung kanilang mga bagong unit. Paano po sila kikita? Paano po sila makakapagbiayad doon sa bangko? May sino po ba yung mapiperwisyo? Hindi po ba yung taong bayan din ang mapiperwisyo dahil ang nakalagak po sa government bank ay pera po. Meron po tayong bawat Pilipinong ambag doon. May mga share po tayo doon. Ang kahilingan ko lamang po, sana po matugunan ng ating pamahalaan, lalo-lalo na po ng ating Chairman Delgra, ang mga problema namin. Isa pa po, Ito pong Muñoz
Sir,
Monumento, ito pong ano namin,
mga
isa na
ruta
lang po kung pwede po. Hindi po, ilan lang po ang mga regional namin ito. Ito pong Baguio namin. Ito pong Baguio namin, baka po pwede po i-consider natin na nagkaroon na lang po ng rehabilitation, lalo-lalo na po yung mga less than 4 kilometers na mga ruta namin na talaga naman pong hindi po talaga kakayanin magbayad ng anumang mga amortization. Pag-aralan po natin mabuti, siguro po hindi naman po tayo nagkakaroon ng malawakang pag-aaral dahil less than 4 kilometers lang po yan eh. Nung ako pinamamasada sa ruta na yan, kumikita po ako dyan, sagad na po 2,000. Ano po ba yung magiging obligasyon natin doon sa pagbabayad? Sana po piliin naman, ikonsidera naman lahat ng mga aspeto namin. At meron po kami dito, isa po, nag-file po kami dito. Yung grupo po namin dyan sa dito po sa Novaliches, nagkaroon po ng denied order galing po sa LTFRB dahil meron na pa palang
Sir, ganito po Ang hihingin ko sa FEDJODAP, lahat ng hinanaing ninyo ngayon, ilagay nyo sa isang liham.
Opo.
Sa liham na yan, bigyan mo kami ng kopya sa komite at ipadala ninyo kay Chairman Delgra. Ang gagawin namin para sa inyo ay masisiguro namin na ipa-follow up namin sa LTFRB na bigyan kayo ng kasagutan. Kasi po ngayon, lahat yan ay binabato ninyo, hindi po yan matatandaan lahat, no? Kailangan din namin balikan itong transcript para mabigay sa kanila. Pero para mapadali, ibigay na ninyo yung liham at sisiguraduhin ko na sasagutin niya ng LTFRB. Okay? Tama po ba ang sinabi ninyo na pagpaparehistro, magkano ang binabayad? 40,000?
More or less po, yung pagpaparehistro po hindi naman po ganong kalaki. Ang sinasabi ko po na mayroong bayarin na problema yung bawat operator kasi po may mga annual book pong pinaiiral ng mga lalo-lalo na po noong 2016 up to 2013 to 16. Ang kinukonsider po lagi dyan ang annual book, which is pag na-miss mo po yung annual book na yan, lalo-lalo na yung 2014, 2015, more or less mga nasa 26 o hanggang 30,000 po iyan.
Okay
hindi po sila makakapag-comply doon sa Madam Chair, hindi po sila makakapag-comply doon sa may pera man po sila, hindi sila makakapag-comply dahil na-miss po nila. Kinakailangan bayaran po nila lahat ng mga missed payment na hindi po nila nabayaran. Pero yung sinasabi ko lang po dito, sila po ba kapag nagrehistro annually, papayag po pa ang ating pamahalaan na hindi nila makukumpleto ang bayarin bago ilabas yung mga original documents para po sila makapamasada? Hindi po. Ang kinakailangan po nila, makumpleto po nila lahat ng mga bayarin nila para po makapag-comply sila at mailabas po ng LTFRB ang rehistro po nila. Yun po yung sinasabi ko, kaya lumalaki po ang mga obligasyon ng bawat isa. Kaya nga po, ang kahilingan ko, magkaroon po sana ng amnesty doon sa lahat ng mga na-displaced na mga operator. Hindi po nakapag-rehistro, gawa na po nitong pandemic na umiiral sa atin ngayon. Po. Sana po maintindihan po natin lahat.
Sige yan. Po. Pag-aralan po natin yung amnesty, hindi naman siguro naghihirap ang LTFRB. So baka pwede naman tayo humingi ng konting palugit. Maraming salamat po, Mr. Rabano. Huli na lang po, Truckers Association. Alam mo, hindi tayo matatapos kailangan ko na pong tapusin tong hearing. So Truckers Association, 3 minutes po. 1 minute ibibigay ko kay Mr. Yumol kasi sentro din siya ng ating diskusyon dito. Okay, go ahead, Truckers Association.
Yes po, magandang hapon po, Madam Chair, at kay Senator Joel at kay Senator Nancy. Salamat po sa pagkakataon na kami ay naanyayahan dito. Tungkol po doon sa ating PUBMP, kasi ang focus po lagi dito, modernization, bagong units, funding, cost of units, monthly amortization against daily income. Ito po yung mga malalaking concerns na bumabagabag doon sa ating mga drivers and operators. Kanina po ay nabanggit ni Chairman Delgra na yun naman po palang mga traditional jeepney natin na roadworthy ay pwede naman po palang maisama dito sa consolidation at saka dito po sa pag-avail natin. Ang maganda po yung report kanina, bagamat yung po mga figures na nailatag, kung i-compare natin doon sa actual number of units ay parang malaki pa po yung diferensya. gusto po sana nating itanong kung ilan ba doon sa mga reported units ng modernization program yung traditional na roadworthy jeepney ang napasok dito or ito ba ay puro brand new units? That is one po. And doon po sa previous meeting natin, hearing natin, Madam Chair, ay nabanggit po ni ASEC Galvante that kinikilala na at ini-implement na ngayon ng pamahalaan through DOTR, LTO, LTFRB, yung roadworthiness as the basis of road safety ng mga sasakyan. At hindi na po year model phase out. Pero kanina po, si Ka Juliet ay mukhang worried at humihingi ng moratorium ng another 2 years para po doon sa year model phase out. So nakakalito po, ano ba talaga ang implementasyon ng gobyerno? Roadworthiness or year model phase out? Sa parte po ng mga truck, ay ganyan pa rin po yung standing na naintindihan. Bagamat tumahimik po ang LTFRB at LTO doon sa year model phase out, but still, yun pong 2018-007, kung hindi po ako nagkakamali, ay in effect pa rin po at hindi pa tinatanggal ng DOTR na yung deadline na ginawa nila noong August 2020 until 29 of December last year ay nandun pa rin po para doon sa phase out ng mga truck. Sana po at nagpapasalamat kami na yung year model phase out ay wawalain at roadworthiness at kami naman po ay nagko-comply doon. Bagamat wala po, hindi kasama sa MBIC yung mga trucks, but still, sabi nga po nila, yung visual appreciation and the PETCs ay gumagana. At yun po yung sinusunod namin. Sana po ang DOTR through LTO ay maglabas na ng panibagong department order na sinasabi nilang roadworthiness na ang gagamitin at yun pong year model phase out ay tanggalin na para po hindi na po nakakalito doon sa mga truckers dahil marami na rin po yung mga truckers na hindi na pinarenew yung kanilang mga truck dahil po sa sinasabi nila hindi na pwede dahil phase out na. Bumili po kami ng mga trucks 3 years ago, 5 years ago, nung bago dahil naglabas din po si LTFRB na hindi raw sila tatanggap ng mga surplus na units. So natakot din po yung mga truckers na hindi makapag-serve doon sa kanilang mga kliyente. So bumili po ng trucks and experience po. Marami na pong truck yung nasoli, yung nabatak because of the quality nung mga brand new po na nabili namin. Ako po mismo personal, meron akong 3 years old na biniling brand new. Ngayon kailangan mag-overhaul na kasi nasira na po yung makina, kumakain na ng langis. Napakamahal po ng unit. So isa po yun sa mga concerns namin no, na based on experience, ito pong mga branded na surplus trucks na pumasa sa inspections, sa roadworthiness inspections ng LTO, ay talaga pong nagagamit namin ng matagal at matibay. Kaya isa po yun sa gusto naming ipakiusap na through your office, through your committee, Madam Chair, ay tanggalin na yung year model at talagang yung roadworthiness ang gawin na lang po. With LTFRB po, hanggang sa ngayon, kanina problema rin po yung decision or release ng mga decision for application of new franchises. Yung pong brand new unit na sinasabi ko 3 years ago, hanggang ngayon po hindi pa na-release yung aking application ng franchise. And meron pong provisional authority na ini-issue ang LTFRB upon application at ito po ay nag-expire every 3 months. Sa 36 months, 12 beses na po ako na nagre-renew ng provisional authority. Mura kung diretso pero may proseso po at talagang hindi naman pag in-apply nyo ngayon bukas approve na. It will take weeks bago po ma-approve. Ang isa pong problema namin, may mga local government units po ngayon na pati po yung mga provisional authority na ini-issue ni LTFRB ay pinakikialaman at hinihimay. Pag po nakita nilang expired yung aming PA, ini-impound po nila yung aming truck kasi daw po yun ay impoundable offense. Ini-impound po nila, particularly City of Manila, at 5,000 pesos po ang multa namin doon na pag nagmulta kami ng 5,000, even if hindi ma-renew yung aming PA, i-release na po kami. Pag bukas na huli-uli kami sa ganung offense, multa na naman po kami ng 5,000 pesos. Sana po, katulad nung nauna pa po naming request bago pa po i-approve itong PA expiration, kung hindi po nila kayang magbigay ng desisyon ng prangkisa, gawin na pong unlimited itong PA na to. Total nasa kanila naman po yung problema, yung burden of approving it dahil hindi naman po nila tinatanggap yung aming application kung kulang. Kaya lang po nila tatanggapin pag kumpleto ito. At kung hindi po sila makadesisyon in 3 years time, sana po yung aming PA ay tuloy-tuloy lang na hindi na nag-expire. Katulad po nung ginawa ni PESA. Nag-request po si PESA na lahat ng accredited tracker nila ay 1 year ang expiration. Bakit po kami na hindi accredited ni PESA, although meron din po accredited na ilang units, bakit po yung mga trucks na hindi accredited ni PESA 3 months lang? Bakit po ang jeep ay 3 months lang? Bakit hindi na lang po gawin na pag dinismiss nyo yung application namin for whatever reason, hindi na rin po kami pwedeng tumakbo, wala ng TA. Pero kung madidelay po, sana po, tanggalin na nila yung expiration ng TA.
Okay,
Po,
I think maraming salamat po. Sa lahat po ng, alam mo, nakakasimpatya ako kay Chairman Delgra. Napakarami talagang concerns ngayon. Naintindihan naman natin na lahat tayo talaga ay may kanya-kanyang request at valid naman po yung mga request ninyo. Kaya lang syempre tao rin ng LTFRB na namumuno, baka makalimutan. Kung pwede, katulad dun sa truckers, lahat ng mga request ninyo, mamaya hihingin ko rin kay Mr. Yumul at sa lahat din ng mga nandito, ipadala ninyo ang liham. Ganito ang gusto kong format ha. Kasi katulad ng sinabi ni Senator Nancy, naintindihan ba natin lahat to? Ako aaminin ko kahit ngayon, marami pa akong dapat matutunan. 'Di ba? So, pwede ba pag gumawa kayo ng liham kung saan ipapadala nyo ako ng kopya, ganito, ilalagay nyo, Chairman Delgra, ganito. I-bullet points ninyo. Huwag ninyong habaan na napakahabang dokumento dahil marami kayong hinihingi. Katulad niyan, number 1 request, yung ruta po na ganito-ganyan, bakit wala pa po yung aming approval? Number 2, bakit po 4 kilometers lang, ganyan-ganyan, baka naman pwedeng habaan. Number 3, huwag ninyong hahabaan ha, kasi sinasabi ko na sa inyo ngayon, tao lang ang mga nagbabasa ng mga sulat ninyo na kami ay nakakatanggap ng ilang daang pahina palagi. So kung dadalian ninyo ang format, mas maiintindihan namin kaagad at ma-checklist namin. Kaya ba ninyo gawin yan? Ha? Huwag ninyong gagawing nobela ang mga sulat ninyo, ha? Okay, thank you po. Para matulungan namin kayo. Pag pinadala nyo sa amin, ita-text ko si Chairman Delgra. Chairman Delgra, hindi pa ninyo nasasagot to, ha?
Yes po.
Yung tanong ni Ma'am Juliet, hindi pa ninyo nasasagot. Kasi Chairman Delgra, pwede mo naman i-delegate sa iba na sagutin. Tapos yung sagot din ninyo, ibigyan niyo rin po kami ng kopya na bullet points din po ha para hindi kami mawala. Okay, balik tayo kay Chairman. Yes sir, go ahead please.
Just a quick just a quick comment on the on yung sa trackers po. Unang-una po, actually we're setting a coordination meeting with the trackers this week. Yung invitation hindi pa po nailabas, but we already setting a coordination meeting this week. So yung grupo nyo po, yung inland hauler, pati na rin po yung hataw, yung may isang grupo pa, pati na rin po yung malaking confederation of trackers, yung SITA po, imbitado po rito sa meeting na ito. And in line with the guidance of Madam Chair, if we may also request, we will extend the invitation to the office of Madam Chair so that you can also send a staff to the coordination meeting para talagang tuloy-tuloy yung ugnayan patungkol dito sa mga issues that the trackers have made mention. Actually, medyo mahaba ng konti, but I can line up 2 or 3 things. I don't want to belabor kasi it will have a lot of time here. he mentioned about roadworthiness as against vehicle age policy, mahabang usapin po yan. Issue about yung PA, mahabang usapin din. Tapos yung pangatlo, yung fees, no? At saka yung very important lang, if I may just make a very quick rejoinder doon, sinasabi niya na pag mag-a-apply ng prangkisa, hindi daw pinapayagan na hindi bago. Sinasabi po namin hindi totoo yan. So long as dalawang bagay po, dadaan sa roadworthiness check ng LTO, at pangalawa, kahit na hindi siya bago, basta hindi lang lalagpas doon sa vehicle age policy natin ng 15 years. Ibig sabihin, but as I've said, Madam Chair, mahabang usapin, but we will give the details during the coordination meeting this week po. We would appreciate if one of your staff would be there so that you would also be advised accordingly after the meeting.
Ay,
thank you po.
Chairman, I'm sure mag-uunahan yung staff ko mag-attend. I'm just kidding. We will ask now Mr. Yumol to do a comment. Sir, kayo na po.
Opo, Madam Chair, kasi po kanina yung presentation ni Chairman Degra na nakita naman natin. Ngayon, sa mga kasama natin transport group, ang inayin po nila, ang apilan nila, from March hanggang ngayon, hindi nakakabiyahe. Siguro po hindi naman kalabisan. Sana doon sa report na hinihingi ni Senador Nancy at saka ni Senador Villanueva, isama po lahat ng rota nationwide na hindi pa pinapayagan. Kasi pinag-uusapan po natin dito sa phase out, wala pa nga pong phase out, phase out na sila. Tapos yung bayanihan to, in every modality, walang phase out. Pero ano pong ginawa nyo? Sa loob po ng isang taon na may git. Ano po ang tawag kaya ron? Yung po yung apilan namin, Madam Senator. At maraming salamat po. 4 na taon na tayo nag-i-hearing. Nung face-to-face pa, wala pang pandemya, nakakamatayan na po nung ibang leader namin. 3 na po, si Pangulong Daniel Campo, si Pangulong Efren, tsaka si Madam Seni. Sana yung susunod, wag naman sana, hindi manggagaling sa hanay namin, hindi naman nagdagan yung 3 na mayapa na, mas na-solve na po itong posisyon na ito, na kung saan, katulad po nung inahing Senate resolution ni Senator Ontiveros, urging the sense of the Senate to suspend. May basihan naman po. Kayo na rin po nagsasabi sa ngayon, talagang hirap na hirap po ang LTFRB. Para ngayon lang tayo nagkakaroon ng consultation kasi po, ginawa yan, walang kaukulang plano, walang konkretong plano. Saan po kami lulugar, saan kami pupunta? Yung sinasabi ni Obet Martin kanina, na walang magasyadong gastos, hindi po ito yun. Yung sinasabi niyang monthly, hindi 40,000, 27,000, depende sa unit na kukunin mo. Baka mamaya, yung unit na kukunin mo, yung binibentang kalakal ng China na kinakalakal ng ating Pangulo, basta China made, gustong-gusto mong tangkilikin natin, mura nga yun. Pero kung branded naman, talagang mataas, nasa 40,000. Kahit nung walang pandemya, hindi natin kakayahan, ngayon pa kaya. Sana po, ang committee po natin, kami po, umaasa sa inyo na sana magkaroon na po ng film stand ang committee natin, maglabas tayo ng committee report. Nakita namin yung Senate Resolution 87, napakaganda. Yung interest hindi lalampas sa 4% diminishing. Yung mode of payment po, at least 15 years, yung kanila 7 years. Yung interest nila, 6%, napakalaki, milyon. At sinabi rin kanina, kung may pera ka, basta OFG compliant yung unit, kahit hindi ka mag-consolidate o mag-co-op, corporation, pwede kang bumili. Di, gawin nyo po lang MC yun. Kasi kaysa sa magpatubo kami ng milyon-milyon, gustong-gusto nyo na talaga, mahal na mahal nyo kami masyado, ayaw nyo kami bigyan ng kahit konting kaalwanan. Lahat ng pagpapahirap, hirap na nga tayo, tapos sabay-sabay na babangon, walang maiiwan. Hindi lang kami naiiwan, pinapatay nyo na po kami sa nangyayari na to. 1 taong may jet, walang ayuda, sabi nga ni Senador Villanueva. Walang SAP, lahat-lahat, wala. Lalakas pa po namin, ang pag-iusap lang namin, bigyan nyo na kami pagkakataon na makapaghanap buhay, hindi po kami aasa sa kaunting ayuda. Hindi po kami liability ng gobyerno, asset po kami. Payagan nyo lang kami, tulungan nyo lang kami, yun lang ang pilo namin. Wala pong kontra sa amin sa pagbabago, gusto namin yan. Gusto lang po namin, Madam Senator, sana, ito na po sana yung unat puling hearing natin, maglabas na tayo ng report na kung saan talaga namang lahat tayo makikinabang dahil particular po ang mananakay. Pamilya rin po namin yung mga mananakay. Gusto namin yung programa na yun. Kaso wala po kaming kakayanan. Sana, nasa nangayuda ng gobyerno. Tira nyo po yung nagsalita kanina. 1 taon na po kung hindi nakabiyay. Sabihin nyo po kung talagang wala ng pag-asa. Yung subsidy 160,000, bigay nyo na lang sa amin. Ganun po yung sinabi ng Page Love kanina. Kung nakukuha nyo po yung ibigay, sabihin, hindi nyo kami pinapabiyahe. O sabihin nyo lang, pero pinabiyahe nyo yung mga modernized jeep. Meron kami subsidy sa gobyerno ng 160. Ibigay nyo na lang sa amin. At least kung gusto mo magkaroon ng ibang livelihood, mapakikinabangan mo yung 160. Pero yun nyo po nasasabi nila yon. Kasi investment namin yan. Ang galing nyo po mag-report, i-report nyo lang, pero wala naman po kayo sa actual, sa baba. Hindi nyo nakikita yung tunay na programa. Ano po, yung mga nakikinabang dyan na transport leader, may panahon naman lahat ng mga may ganan. Sana makakatulog pa kayo ng masarap kami. Makauwi kami ng 300, 400, nakakatulog kami ng masarap dahil galing sa pinagpaguran namin. Yung kinita namin, pinakakain namin sa pamilya namin. Ano po. Yung hindi nyo pinabibiyahe, nasaan sila sabi nyo walang face out. Face out na nga, 1 taon lang hindi nagana po eh.
Mr. Yumul, pwede po kaya, syempre lahat tayo talagang emotional dito, no? Pero magaganda yung mga punto ninyo. So lahat po ng mga hinihingi ninyo, isubmit po ninyo yung sulat sa amin, ha? Yung ibibigay nyo kay Chairman Delgra. Kasi pag ginawa, katulad nga, nagulat nga ako kasi 6% na interest, mataas pa yan eh. Pwede pang babaan, di ba? Pag ikaw nga. O, kasi kung ikaw meron...
yung sobra,
kung ikaw...
ibubulsan
Teka, sandali lang po. Yung punto ko dito, no? Di ba pag kayo naglagay ng pera sa savings account nyo, magkano interest? Maswerte ka nga kung naka 1% ka eh, di ba? Napakababa ng bigay ng bangko. Pero pag maningin sila ng interest, napakataas. Ang Land Bank at DBP, hindi naman dapat talaga kumikita yan. Huwag lang yan malulugi. So, kung meron silang interest, kahit na 4%, okay na yon. Parang subsidiya na yung extra 2% na matitipid ng ating mga drivers. Imbis na 6% ang babayaran nila. So, isasama ko po din yan sa committee report. Ngayon, gusto kong tanungin si Chairman Delgra. Chair, pwede po ba magkaroon ng moratorium sa consolidation? At least 1 year after nagkaroon ng 100% resumption ang ating mga drivers. Kasi, di ba, ang dami mga rutang suspendido ngayon dahil nga dito sa pandemya, baka pwede namang ipalawig muna yung consolidation. Is that possible, sir?
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Opo. Actually po,
yes,
Hello? Hello?
Go ahead po.
Ayan, opo. Madam Chair, actually po, yung yung programang ito started 2017, June to be exact. And that we have set, actually one of the components there is yung tinatawag nating initial implementation. So initially, they were given 3 years to consolidate because as we have said repeatedly, consolidation is key. And then umabot yung pandemya, we have extended it actually 2 or 3 times already. So having said that, as we have made mention also, na yung consolidation as a deadline is set on March 31, but it does not mean also na titigil yung mga hindi nag-consolidate. Meron po kaming MC, na yung MC 066, if I may recall, that we have said na if you have not consolidated at the end of that period that we have stated there, which is as of the latest, yung March 31, you continue to apply, but you're still given 1 year to consolidate. So ang ibig ko lang sabihin po, Madam Chair, that tuloy-tuloy naman din po yung program implementation nito, including the appeal to consolidate. I would just like to perhaps point out na itong program na ito is inclusive. Inclusive especially those who are affected. That's precisely why hindi ito yung isa o dalawang component ang inaano natin dito, ang ina-address. We have to look at it from all components insofar as what we would see would be most sensitive or affected. No? as mentioned, I hope kasi si Ka-Obet gusto nang sumagot dun kay Mr. Yumol kasi nakikita ni Ka-Obet yung benefit, the full benefit of the modernization program. It is not to say, Madam Chair, na walang problema pagpapasok ka. May problema. But the benefits far outweigh the risk insofar as the modernization program is concerned. As I have made mention, to our surprise, akala nga namin babagal o hihinto yung pagpapatakbo ng programa during the time of the pandemic. Nakakatuwa na tuloy-tuloy. And obviously, we don't credit it to any one group. No, we cannot credit it to LTFRB, to DOTR. We cannot even credit it to the co-op. We cannot even credit it to the LGU who would support modernization. It's, as I've said, an all-nation approach insofar as modernization program is concerned. But we need to do this together. So hindi po pwede na iiwanan natin. Pero kung sakasakali talaga magdidesisyon sila na ayaw, eh may iiwanan sila doon sa ginagawa nating modernization program. Yun po.
Okay, so Chair Delgra, just for my understanding and the understanding of our participants here today, hindi ibig sabihin na hindi ka nakapag-consolidate ng end of March ay hindi ka na pwedeng mag-fly ng ruta nyo. Pero tumatakbo ang metro, kailangan mag-consolidate na rin at some point, a year after. Tama ba yun?
Tama po, essentially, Madam Chair, but not necessarily a year after. Within the year, para mas mapadali pa yung pagpasok.
Within the year. Okay. So lahat yan, lahat ng mga katanungan ninyo ay pakisubmit na. So at least hindi tayo naghihingalong nakikipaghabulan ngayon sa LTFRB kasi next week magse-session break na kami. Pero at least palagay ang loob ko na yung ating mga mahal na driver ay patuloy pa rin namang pwedeng sa kanilang mga ruta na pinayagan, basta lamang ay mag-usap-usap tungkol sa konsolidasyon within the year. Ngayon, para sa ating mga drivers, at sinabi nga ni Mr. Yumol, I will move to submit this committee report already. Mr. Martin, yes.
Well, 1 minute, Madam Chair. Thank you po at napagbigyan niyo ako. Well, siguro nakita ko ang mga problema ng mga grupo natin sa transport ay ang consolidation process. Siguro I would advise these people, these operators, this leader, na siguro may pag-ugnayan sa ating mga LTFRB regions dito sa NCR para malaman nila yung tamang proseso ng consolidation. At regarding sa sinabi ni Danny Yumol na 40,000, ako ay wala akong China tumatakbo. Ang lahat po ng modern jeep ko ay puro Isuzu made. Local po yan ng body, Isuzu engine. At I have the records, Madam Chair. Just to prove it to Mr. Yumol, I do not know kung itong si Danny Yumol ay meron ng modern jeep. Ako ho, 60 units. I have another order of 120 units. At nakita ko po ang benepisyo nito. Kanya nga po yung mga grupo ko ay sumang-ayon dito sapagkat nakita nila yung kagandahan nito. Doon sa ibang grupo na problema ang consideration, ang may papayo ko po, Madam Chair, may pag-ugnayan sa NCR Director kay Atty. Tamayo, Region 3, upang ibigay sa kanila ang tamang sistema ng consolidation process. Regarding Danny Yumol, yung sinasabi niya, mayroon ako isang China, Madam Chair, hindi ko na pinabibiyahe. Meron ako ngayon existing units na Isuzu. I can show him the records na binabayaran ko wala pang 30,000 a month ang monthly amortization.
Saan kayo nakakuha ng loan?
DBP po, Land Bank po, Madam Chair.
Okay, ganito na lang po. I'm glad that you raised that, no, Mr. Martin. Bigyan mo kami ng kopya niyan. Ngayon, yung sinasabi ninyo na kausapin yung si Attorney Tamayo, LTFRB, give me step-by-step process on how to be able to apply for a cooperative. Diba?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Para mabilis kasi ano ba yung kailangan ng mga dokumento, ganyan. Kasi meron tayong Anti-Red Tape Act din, diba? So we want to make sure that we're compliant. But thank you. I appreciate both Danny Yumol and I appreciate Mr. Martin because it presents two different sides. And we need to be able to see and reconcile those. I'm glad to see that you've succeeded in the proposed system of the LTFRB, Mr. Martin. Siguro talagang organisado ka ng nasanay ka sa proseso nila, pero hindi natin mapapagkaila, marami na papag-iwanan pa rin. So, konting tulong. So, Sir Papano.
Tama po yan, Madam Chair. Sapagkat ako po kasi jeepney operator. Ako po ang pinakamatagandang jeepney leader sa ngayon. At ako po ay jeepney operator kanya. Remember, Madam Chair, during one of our meeting in the Senate, na sinabi ko sa inyo, dala ko po ang aking CPC. Affected po ako sapagkat ako ay jeepney operator. Hindi ko nga alam yung ibang leader dyan kung jeepney operator at paano naging operator. At yung pong one more thing, Madam Chair, 1 minute. Yung nabanggit din ni Danny Yumol tungkol dito sa programa ng TESDA, which is sponsored by DOTR, yung super scholar po yan. Palagay ko baka kulang siya ng kaalaman dyan, maturuan natin yan para yung kanyang mga hanay ay makapag-enroll sa TESDA. At ito po iniinganyo tayo ng ating kalihim, Artugade, ang asawa ng super, anak ng super, kamag-anak ng super ay mag-enroll po sa TESDA para mabigyan ng karampatang hanap buhay. Asawa, kamag-anak, kapatid. Meron po, nabanggit ni Mr. Chair, merong allowance na minimum wage para yung kanilang hanap buhay ay maiwan nila at may pagkakitaan sila. Napakaganda po nitong programang Super Scholar na ito ng DOTR, Madam Chair. At
so
libre
po yan, ano?
Libre po ito.
So pwede sila, kunyari, ang gusto nila, cosmetology. Pwede yon.
Pwede po. Basta within the TESDA, mga project po yan. Lahat po yan. Pagluluto, machinist, welder, everything po. Talagang they will give you a certificate after your graduation. So kung mag-a-apply ka sa abroad, mag-a-apply ka sa local, certificate ka po ng TESDA. Baka ho si Danny Yumula, hindi niya alam to, mabuti malaman niya, pwede naman siya mag-inquire sa mga TESDA sa mga probinsya at matulungan ng hanay niya, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, may I add one point from Movas One po?
I'm sorry.
You know what? I really have to adjourn this already. So I'm giving you 30 seconds,
30
Dr.
seconds.
C. Okay, go ahead.
30 seconds. There's a mention of consolidation, Madam Chair. We understand that one of the panelists here is actually from the OTC. So without having to belabor time, perhaps the questions might also be directed later on, even after this hearing, to the OTC. No? The ED Eugene Pabualan is actually here in attendance. So perhaps you can direct also the question to him to assist those who wants to consolidate into cooperatives po. Transport service.
Anong OTC? Anong OTC?
Office of Transport Cooperative. Thank you po.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. C, ikaw na yung huli.
Very quick, Madam Chair. You know, all these programs are very important, including service contracting. One thing we see, which is a constraint, is the institutional capacity of the OTR and LTFRB. This is actually, in a way, restricting also the implementation. So I would suggest for all of us, legislators and DOTR, to address this. This is part of the constraint why implementation has been weak. So please address this po. Thank you very much.
Wait. It's a little bit hypothetical in my... what do you mean? What's your point? Again?
My point is, ma'am, for the magnitude of this program, we need more staff involved. So regular staff of LTFRB and DOTR, there are limitations in terms of how many are actually involved in implementing this program. And even, you know, the job order and contractual staff that are hired to implement these programs is limited. When we look at the magnitude, the number of co-ops that need to be formed, you have to weigh that against how many staff are in the Office of Transport Cooperatives.
I think
Very
that's really
limited.
that's a good point. In fact, in many government offices, talagang kulang ng tao and maraming programa ang DOTR kaya hindi natututukan mabuti ang bawat isa.
Madam Chair?
Anyway,
Madam Chair, briefly I can Steve Pastor from the Department of Transportation, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Very briefly po, we recognize po the points made by Dr. C. In fact po, we are in close coordination with their group as well as to inform them that we are in coordination with DPM po, para po ma-institutionalize din po talaga itong PMOs namin with regard
service contracting. Kasi talagang totoo naman po, kulang po kami sa tao. Ngunit pagamato ganun ang sitwasyon, we're still pushing for the program to be a successful one. And of course, we always welcome po yung mga comments na ganyan and suggestions. So, yun lang po, Madam. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, no more. I will have to already adjourn this hearing. I would like, who is speaking?
From provincial buses transport sector.
What do you have to add?
Madam, a little bit lang po ito. So kami po mga provincial buses local union president